Welcome in to the Irish Breakdown. We have a special show on this Thursday evening. Hope everyone is doing well. And yes, Notre Dame has added once again to the 2025 recruiting class four-star offensive tackle Owen Strebig, Catholic Memorial, Waukesha, Wisconsin. He's ranked 66th in the nation according to Rivals. That's a pretty good haul right there for Joe Rudolph and that offensive line in the 25 class. Great pickup for Notre Dame. It's been long rumored, I would say, or thought of that Notre Dame would land his services. I mean, he visited
How
Notre
about
Dame.
assumed? How about assumed? Long assumed that he was going to commit to Notre Dame.
He visited Notre Dame 6 times and didn't even realize when Ryan Roberts actually put that in the story. He contacted Ryan and said, have I really visited 6 times? Like, yes, young man. You love South Bend. You love the program. And this is a great pickup. And so let's just talk about the backstory. Before we do, make sure you subscribe to Irish Breakdown, okay? On YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It helps us out. Leave your comments. We appreciate that. And then on top of that, for all of our great intel, not just about Owen Strebig leading up to this announcement this evening, for other people coming up in the 25 class, especially coming up during the spring, go to boardsirishbreakdown.com. Sign up for the message board for all of our great content from Brian, myself, Ryan Roberts. It's the best way to get the best information for all of the upcoming recruits and recruiting for Notre Dame football. So,
speaking of commitment, Sean, obviously things have changed a little bit. Sean, you've committed to a little bit to Irish Breakdown. Obviously, you're going to be much more involved in the day-to-day recruiting coverage at Notre Dame. So you and I agreed to a contract this morning. So that's going to expand it. Sean's always been a bit of a always been a member of our family here, but now this is a little bit more official. So more recruiting coverage coming from you, obviously assisting with Ryan, and a little bit more. So this means the RTCF show's back.
Absolutely.
We'll probably kick that off either, if not this Saturday, next Saturday. That's going to be back. So you're going to see even more and more of Sean Davis as part of the Irish Breakdown family, which again, boards at irishbreakdown.com. You get a lot of the intel that we have. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Sean, this is a show that's about a much bigger commitment than you and I, literally and figuratively, and that's Owen Strebig. This is a big one for Notre Dame. And again, I use that figuratively and literally. This is a massive young man, 6'8", 295. This is a massive commitment for Notre Dame. And for a lot of different reasons we'll dive into, Sean. But like the backstory here is really cool because Ryan I just published a story at irishbreakdown.com that Ryan wrote. And he interviewed Owen a couple days ago about the commitment. So we've been kind of had this story just waiting until Owen committed. And he talked about how, his high school coach has known Joe Rudolph for a long time because obviously Joe Rudolph was at Wisconsin. So there is that connection there with Joe Rudolph. Did a great job there. We talked about one of the big questions with Joe Rudolph was going to be, would he be able to recruit to a place like Notre Dame? Like we know he could find the 3-star hidden gems at Wisconsin and develop those guys up like he did there, but could he go toe to toe with Miami, with Florida State, with USC, with Alabama, with Georgia for the top offensive lineman in college football? And he has so far. I mean, getting Gerby and Lambert, you had to beat the best of the best to get him. To get Styles Prescott, who had Bama offer, Ohio State offer, Michigan offer, and now Owen Strebig, who you literally beat teams from all across the country for. You've seen Will Black, who's committed to Notre Dame, has recently just got offered by, I think, Alabama yesterday or the day before. And so this kind of answers a big question mark that we had about Joe Rudolph was, number one, would he be willing to go after the top guys or would he kind of settle for the projects? And then number two, could he go toe-to-toe with these top programs? And so far, his tenure at Notre Dame has been certainly a success when it comes to going out, finding the best, and landing the best. That's a big part of this backstory because, like, we've talked a lot about the Owen Strebig aspect of this, Sean, but could Joe Rudolph finish the deal and seal the deal? And honestly, the concern I had was Owen was so high on Notre Dame so early that you just kind of felt like that could create an opportunity where maybe some other schools could tear Notre Dame down. They were the top target everybody was shooting for, and it just never worked. Owen was on Notre Dame the whole time. Coach Rudolph stayed on him the whole time. And what we all assumed was going to happen eventually has now officially happened. And Deuce Knight now has a couple bookends at tackle for himself in the 2025 class.
Yeah, Deuce feels really good knowing that those two guys are going to have his back and his front covered when he finally arrives on campus. You talk about that backstory, and this is something we've seen in the 25 class with a lot of recruits, because we're going to get to the remaining guys on the board on the offensive line in a few minutes. But when we talk about Owen Strebig and him visiting, I think one of the things that stood out for him, you talked about the relationship that his high school coach had with Joe Rudolph, but also the relationship he was able to build with Joe Rudolph. And we can never forget the overarching Notre Dame offensive line culture. And what do I mean by that? When young men come in, for years, the way the offensive line moves as a herd around campus, off the field, on the field, is very impressive, and it always weighs on the hearts of young people. I believe Charles Jagusah even spoke about it. It's not just about watching the starters getting coached hard. Even the backups are coached hard.
Mm-hmm.
Most young men that come in, they know they're eventually going to be backups before they become starters. And that culture is still there. And you can talk about Harry Heastan being the author of that culture, or the creator, and going back before that, all the way back to the 90s. Look, that is Notre Dame football. It is O-line U, and it's something that's always going to be impressive. And I think it's something that showed up in this recruitment of Owen Strebig as well, Brian.
Oh, there's no question. And you know, one of the things about this, as what you're talking about, Sean, and the O-line U aspect, and it's talking about Landon Gerby and Landon Styles Prescott and Landon Peter Jones, and then year before that, Charles Jagusah and Sullivan Absher, highly ranked guys, and the year before that, it was Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, and is you find out who's truly are the competitors, right? And that's the thing is Owen Strebig's been leaning to Notre Dame since before Gerby Lambert committed. There's a much faster path to starting at USC for Owen Strebig than there is Notre Dame. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. We all know that they've got issues in the offensive line. There's a much faster path to Owen Strebig getting starting lineup at Florida State and at Wisconsin than Notre Dame, but it just never phased him. Gerby Lambert commits, I don't care. You know, Styles Prescott commits, I don't care. You know, Will Black commits, I don't care. This is the place I want to be. And you find that out. That's one of the hidden things about what makes O-line U is, in order to get these big time kids year after year after year, you know you're getting kids that are willing to compete. You look at Sullivan Absher and Sam Pendleton, they were looking at a depth chart loaded with, you know, guys, Billy Schrouths and Ashton Craigs and Rocco Spindlers and guys like that, right? You look at Peter Jones, he's looking at a depth chart that's got those guys plus Sullivan Absher and Sam Pendleton, right? Joe Wadding. And you find out who the competitors are. Who are the guys that are like, look, I'm going to Notre Dame. I'm going to get developed, and I don't care who's in front of me. I'm going to go there and battle. And that says something says a lot about Owen Strebig as well, Sean, when you talk about this, because as I said, man, these people have been coming at Notre Dame for months trying to tear down the big dog in his recruitment, and it just never worked. And kudos to the staff for staying on him and staying patient, because I had a buddy of mine, Sean, it was funny. He was like, you know, I don't know, man. I think this kid might be too big time for Notre Dame. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you know, he should have already been committed by now. And I was like, bruh, this was a couple weeks ago. It's January of his junior year. You know, like this is still really early, but he's just been on campus so often, and it's been assumed he would join so often. It just seemed like he was dragging it out. But I'm like, it's now February of his junior year. It's still way early. And now he's a member of the class, Sean. And as we said, it's a big pickup for Notre Dame. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Once again, Catholic Memorial, Waukesha, Wisconsin's 4-star, ranked 66 nationally by rivals, Owen Strebig commits to the University of Notre Dame. Huge get. Talking about the backstory, but let's move forward. What's the impact of this young man on this class and on the offensive line room with the talents that he has?
Well, Sean, it's kind of interesting. You know, we've talked a lot about the last couple of years. I know you and I have talked about it, and Ryan and I have talked about it. You and Ryan have talked about it the last couple of years. You know, Notre Dame really needed to have some success the last couple of years in rebuilding, number one, the depth of the line, and then the talent of the line, right? And they've gone a long way towards that in recent years. You know, they signed a 5-man class in 2022. You know, or excuse me, 2021. That was the Joe Alt class, the Blake Fisher class, and then 2022 they signed another 5-man class. Sadly, that went down to 4 when Joey Tanona had his accident. And then in 2023, They sign a 5-man class, and then in 2024, it's another really good 4-man class. And it's strong numbers top to bottom, right? And so you go into the 2025 class, and it's no longer about numbers. Now it's about impact talent. Can you land impact talent? Owen Strebig is impact talent, from a potential upside standpoint. Here's the other thing. One of the concerns that we had, and this is even true of the first line class that Coach Eastham put together at Notre Dame, was it was a very interior dominant group of linemen. The 2021, 2022, Notre Dame had not signed the necessary tackle depth. And some of the guys they projected to tackle, like Tai Chan in past classes, weren't guys that I thought really projected best to tackle. And so you have a lot of these like guys that maybe look like tackles, but are better suited inside. And so you had to really build it back up. Last year was a really good first step towards that when you got Gerby Lambert, Styles Prescott. And I also believe Peter Jones can play right tackle if you need him to. I like Peter. I think he's got the skills to play there. I would prefer him to be inside. But the point is you have a third guy that could maybe play tackle. I don't know that Anthony Knapp can play tackle because of the size, but he certainly has athleticism and the pop to play tackle, right? So you went a long way there. This was the class that was going to determine whether or not they could completely revamp and restore the tackle depth chart, not just O-line numbers 1 to 17, because just because you have 17 O-linemen doesn't mean you have starting 5 and the depth necessary. You get Will Black, who I think can play tackle or guard, 6'7", 295. Owen Strebig's a pure tackle. So to me, last year's class, Styles Prescott's a pure a tackle that can play guard. Peter Jones is a tackle that can play guard. Gerby's a pure tackle. You look at this year's class, Will Black's a tackle that can play guard. Owen Strebig's another pure tackle to me. Like, this is a kid that you're like, this is a space player. This is an edge player. And so when you talk about how he impacts the class, it's those two areas. Number one, you're shooting for impact talent over numbers, because I think Notre Dame could end up stopping at 3 in this class and maybe say we're going to focus on other positions on the O-line, because I don't think this is a great O-line class either nationally, in my opinion, at least what I've seen so far. But you've now got 2 6'7", long, 295+ tackles in Will Black and Owen Strebig. So I think this has gone a long way towards now you are solidifying your tackle. And now for the rest of 25 and then 26 and beyond, Joe Rudolph, Mike Denbrock, Chad Bowden, they can focus on let's get the best of the best. And the best of the best that fit here, not who's the highest ranked, but the best of the best for what we're looking for at Notre Dame and what's going to help us build a dominant line. And Owen Strebig obviously is a part of that as well, because it's not just numbers, it's the impact talent that can't be dismissed.
One of the things I loved about his junior film is that you can tell he's a worker. I love, see, offensive linemen in high school, Brian, they can fall in love with the fact that they just know they can go overpower guys. Because maybe they face a good defensive end once or twice, or maybe when they get to the playoffs on their schedule, that's really going to challenge them. But you see him working on sinking, anchoring, technique, hand punch. You can see it in his film, which lets you know he wants to be a technician. He just doesn't want to use his size to overpower you on a consistent basis. That right there is something that tells me, along with his athleticism that he already has, he's going to end up being a pretty good bookend. Whether he ends up a left tackle or right tackle, he just might not be able to beat out the individuals at left tackle once he arrives on campus. So that might get him to switch to right tackle. Charles Jagusah was working the inside because they wanted the opportunity to get him on the field. That was the quickest route because, look, Joe Alton, Blake Fisher, you can say what you want to say about Blake Fisher, but more than likely he's going to be a 3rd round, maybe 4th round NFL pick.
Yeah.
And then you got a top 10 pick on the other side. How are you going to crack that lineup?
Sure.
But even with that, there's a path. And that's the beautiful thing about college football, right? No matter what position room you go to, there is a path. You have to be willing to go ahead and do the necessary work before you get to the end of the path.
Right.
And in the Notre Dame offensive line room, unlike the Notre Dame wide receiver room, there is a quicker path for younger players. In the running back room, there is a quicker path for freshmen to probably get on the field earlier. Offensive line, quarterback, bite your time, put in your work, get better, and when the opportunity arises, be ready to take advantage of it, like a Charles Jagusah did during bowl prep. The opportunity came forth. He was ready. He took advantage. Going into the spring, he looks to be the starting left tackle. That is going to be something with Owen Strebig coming into this offensive line room that is going to be even more loaded by the time he gets here.
Right.
That's something that he's going to be able to lock into. But at the same time, he's talented enough. That's the beautiful thing about him. He's talented enough to make an impression and push those that are in front of him.
Well, Sean, the thing is, we talked a lot about restoring the tackle depth chart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the competitiveness comes from what's in front, but also what's behind. That's the aspect that you're getting to. But the other thing is, I think Gerby Lambert can play left tackle. And I think Charles Jagusah can play left tackle. Charles only played it for 1 year in high school, though. And then now we've seen it one game in college. Gerby's never played left tackle.
Yeah.
That is the other thing about this with Owen Strebig, too, is he's a left tackle. Now, if you can play left tackle, I think you can play right tackle, in my opinion. I don't think every right tackle can play left tackle. And as somebody in the chat pointed out, if Deuce Knight ever takes over starting quarterback, your right tackle is now the blindside guy, which makes it interesting. You know what I mean? As far as like, hey, what do you do with Gerby and Owen? So anyway, but the point is to what you're saying, Sean, is you always want to have the competition coming from in front and behind for players. You want to make sure that younger players have talented players in front of them that they got to push for, but then also talented players coming up behind you, they're going to push you. And that's another reason why being able to stack classes back to back to back has done. And look, I thought Jeff Quinn did some really nice things recruiting at Notre Dame. He really did.
Yeah.
But you had Blake Fisher and Joe Walt, but there were some issues like, with some of the classes where just the tackles weren't quite where they need to be. And as much as I loved Coach Eastand's first class, were there any pure tackles in the class? You could argue there's none. Because people argue Charles Jagusah's best position might be like as a Quentin Nelson type guard. That's debatable, but there's no debating that Owen Strebig is a tackle. There's no debating that Gerby Lambert's a tackle. And that's an important piece to when you talk about the class impact. So great hits the depth numbers, hits the impact potential. I think we'll dive into the film here a little bit. This kid's just getting started on tapping his potential. And you're also once again going out and saying we're gonna beat Florida State, who just went 13-0. We're gonna beat USC. We're gonna beat Miami. And you had to beat two really good recruiting offensive line people at Miami. And this is something Ryan noted in the commitment preview. It's not just Alex Mirabel, the offensive line coach, who's got a strong reputation. You also have to beat out Mario Cristobal,
yeah,
who has a strong reputation as a line coach. So once again, this is a big win for Joe Rudolph. Not just Notre Dame, but Joe Rudolph establishing himself as that, right? Because there's always that cloud hanging over his head of Harry Hiestand, rightfully so. Just like people that had to replace Joe Moore.
Yeah,
there was greatness here before. Can you live up to that? Coach Rudolph still has a lot to prove as an O-line coach, but I mean, it's hard to be anything but fired up about the job he's done as a recruiter since he got hired at Notre Dame, and Owen Strebig's just the latest. And don't think Joe Rudolph's a competitor like all of us. I don't know Coach Rudolph. I've never had a conversation with the man. Seems like a really nice guy, but he's also a football coach and a former football player. There's some competitiveness there. You don't get to Notre Dame by not being competitive. Going back into the state of the school that fired him to beat them for the best offensive lineman in that state. Don't think there's not some champagne getting popped or, you know what I mean, for that one, right? That's a little bit of, okay, you guys got rid of me, but I'm at Notre Dame now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go into your state and I'm going to take the best that you have to offer because I'm at Notre Dame. So I don't think, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm that petty, but I have a feeling that was part of not that why they went after Owen Strebig, but part of the excitement of getting Owen Strebig is certainly that little cherry on top for Joe Rudolph. But just a big win for Joe Rudolph. Big win for Deuce Knight. Because let's be honest, the biggest impact Deuce has had so far in this class has been on the defensive side of the ball. Let's be real about that. I mean, Deuce has played a big role in guys like Ivan Taylor and Christopher Burgess and guys like the offensive signees haven't really kind of picked up yet. The big-time offensive guys haven't really picked up yet. So now you get on Strebig. Okay, that's the first literally big domino to fall. And it's a big one.
Yeah, well, you talk about him feeling good, and we spoke with him a little bit. Ryan spoke with him recently. I spoke with him recently, and Deuce flat out said, "Yo, I came to Junior Day to seal the deal for Owen Strebig." And at that hockey game, we had a real conversation like, "Hey, bro," because he knew that he had that visit coming up. And a lot of people were holding their breath, Brian. You know, oh man, he's posted these pictures with Mario Cristobal and the Miami visit and this, that, and the other. And it's like, relax, man. The kid is doing his due diligence.
Right.
He's supposed to smile doing it. What else do you do when you take pictures?
Right.
You smile. Of course,
You
he should
wouldn't, you
look
wouldn't be
happy.
disrespectful and throw up a sign for some other school, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
That would be super petty, though. If a kid
right.
ever did that, that would be super petty. But once
Yeah.
again, just to highlight, it was a great pickup. Great job by Joe Rudolph. Once again, added depth at the tackle position that was much needed in this class moving forward. And then the versatility to do some other things if you want to move some of the other guys inside down the line. Thank you right now for being on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Myself, Sean Davis, Brian Driscoll. We're talking about the commitment of Owen Strebig, Catholic Memorial, Waukesha, Wisconsin, number 66, according to Rivals. He is in the 2025 class. We talked about his impact. Now, let's get to his film, because his film, as who was that? Rasheed Wallace used to say, "Ball don't lie, film don't lie," ladies and gentlemen.
No, it
Film does
doesn't.
not lie. So let's look at the film.
Let's get into this right now. I mean, first thing you're going to see, Sean, when you watch this kid's film is size.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, is you see size. And the thing I like about him, where'd that go? Hold on a second. Dang YouTube. First thing you see, though, it's not just tall, right? I mean, you can see it really well from that clip right there. It's not just tall. It's, are you long? You can be 6'8", not long, but look how long those arms are. His highlight film reports a 34.5-inch wingspan. I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, you just see how long his arms are. He really can move well at that size. You can see it down there, 84.5. If that's accurate, that's huge. I mean, that literally huge. But the thing too, Sean, is that I like about him is you see it right there. He's a 6'8" kid that understands pad level. There are some things he needs to do to improve the consistency with which he plays with a nice knee bend, but you could see it in that pass block right there. This is a kid that keeps his pads low for the most part, especially for a younger player, and shows the ability to bend with his knees. We use that term, like, are you a knee bender, right? What you don't want is a guy that's a waist bender. Now, some guys do that because their technique is bad. Other guys do that because they're not flexible.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, with Owen, that's not one of the clips that really fired me up about that. But you see a kid that shows good quickness out of his stance, plays with a nice base. You can see it right there, and shows the ability to bend his knees. And I think that was probably my biggest concern when I first started watching this film was, can this kid bend, or is he just going to be a Tosh Baker type that, 6'8" and struggles to bend? And he's really good a lot of the times, but you're going to get 5-6 snaps a game where he doesn't bend properly and guys get into his chest and drive him back. Owen has the potential to certainly be a guy that can be better, more of a Joe Alt than he would be in another area.
And when you watch his film, some of the things that Catholic Memorial asked him to do are some of the same things that was asked of Joe Alt this year. Joe Alt got out into space a lot in the Notre Dame run game, got to the second level, and I love offensive linemen. When you watch their feet, it's very, very quick, short steps. And when you watch him get to the second level, watch his feet. It's real quick, short steps. Even in the pass pro, it's all about the kick step, how quick. And then the kick step, we learned, and we talked about this before, all kick steps are not created equally. Everybody has their own style of kick step. And this young man, like you said, you could tell he wants to be a technician and he wants to work on his game despite being much bigger than everyone else on the field. That's what you have to love about what you see on the film.
He works at it, Sean, but there's still a lot of work needed. This is an example right here, right? Like, he just kind of picks that foot up and doesn't step, which causes him to then have to kind of cross over that left foot, which causes him to lose a lot of power, right? So this clip's a perfect example of, hey, look, there's a lot of work to be done, but there's a really nice, strong power profile there with him that when he does it right, does show me some pop. He has good punch in his hands. He has some good strength, but as you can see there's a lot of clips like that where you see a guy that's really smooth right there, very fluid. Look how long he is, though, right? Like that is just crazy length right there. And why does that matter? Look, sometimes there's going to be guys who are too fast for him on the edge. But when you're that long, that's how you recover and get hands on. Does he have the hand strength to do it? That's one of his best reps right there. This one coming up. Does he? And that's a big boy he's going against. But you just see that power, that natural hand power, that natural lower body strength for a kid. And as he learns, I mean, the game and it learn, because like right there, you see as a clip, he kind of his hands are real straight and they're kind of locked. He's got to learn to use them a little bit more violently. But that length is really exceptional. You see that punch right there. You see enough clips like this that as this kid gets older and continues to watch how violent he is bringing his hands on this particular clip, Sean. Like you want to see that more. That's what I want to see more. Nice little double team there with the left guard as well. There's stuff you see in there to where I don't have Owen. That's a really nice get off there. I don't have Owen Strebig like as a top 50 player right now, because he has grown to his body and he's still a young player. But there's the tools that you're like, this kid has the tools to eventually be a great player. Here's the thing, too, about him, Sean. You look at 6'8" and the long arms. This kid's listed at 295, and you've seen pictures of him. He's baby-faced. He's not fat at all. He's going to be 6'8", 325 plus and not look fat. He's going to look a lot like – I'm not saying he's as good as Joe Alt. They're different players, but body type wise, he's going to look a lot like Joe Alt did at Notre Dame. 6'8", still kind of thinnish looking, but 325 and nimble on the outside. And that's a thing that you talked about, Sean. With the feet, that's an important part to this because he's not a super explosive athlete coming out of a stance, but he's smooth.
Yeah,
he's fluid. Right, he's got that real clean kick step, like you talked about. Good change of direction. His base tends to narrow at times, but the tools are all there, man, for him to be that kind of guy. And so, man, there's a lot to like there, Sean. And the thing you want when you watch the film, maybe you don't feel the same way, Sean. I'm curious. I see a kid, I'm like, dude, this kid's not even close to scratching the surface of what I think he can be as a player. Like, I really do think there's a lot more there for him to get to as a player, to where you say, man, this kid's got a chance to be really, really good. He's not there yet, but he's got the tools to be really, really good, and does come from a really good program. So I do feel like there's going to be a jump as a senior, that you're going to see some of that stuff get worked out as a senior, because he does come from such a really strong football program at Catholic Memorial.
Yeah, I agree with you. And when you talk about all of the skill sets that he does have, the one thing that I see in his film is that the inconsistency is really what you're talking about. It's not like he doesn't know how to be technically sound. It's all about focus.
Right.
And that's the same thing that
the muscle memory is not quite there yet. Right.
Absolutely.
Because he's still growing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is like he was still growing as his junior or senior year. So like I can have a muscle memory for something when I'm at this age, but then I grow 6 inches and now I have to kind of retrain myself a little bit.
Yeah.
To your point, yes, the muscle memory is not there yet, Sean. And that's why I say, like, it's there. And then focus. He's a young kid. Like you said, he's still learning the game. But there's a lot to work with there.
I tell you, man, it's almost like being a rim protector, right? You talk about those long arms. Those long arms come in handy for rim protectors in basketball, and they come in handy for left tackles, right tackles. It's like, because you're not always going to be able to get close.
Right. So
you use that distance, so you use your arms to be able to ward off those speedier defenders that are trying to come around the edge and just run them right past, especially if he's going to be, you have a quarterback like Deuce. Oh, go right ahead. Run past him. Because as soon as you run past him, he's taking off to the left or to the right, 10 yards down the field, or a big play to the house. So,
well, Sean, I'm in the process of breaking down LSU's film. So one of the things I'm doing, and this is going to be for board members only.
Yeah.
I'm actually going through all of the 9 kind of Power 5 games for LSU this year that Mike Denbrock was a part of. So the Florida State game and then all 8 conference games. And I'm breaking it down in like every aspect. I'm breaking down their run game, pass game, personnel, all that stuff. And one of the things that I'm doing is, because we knew that this was happening, and we know that Deuce is part of the class, and you're watching these plays where they'll run like a one play they ran against Florida State, for example, was they ran just a drop back pass, like RPO kind of pass, where they're reading but if it's not there, you just take off running. And the Florida State end comes flying up the field, and Jaden Daniels is like, it's not there, boom, just gone. And then the tackle was able to do a good job of kind of then sealing inside. And that's the thing about those long tackles. I mean, you're talking about Gerby Lambert's got insane length. Owen Strebig's got insane length. To where that guy tries to revert back inside to chase your quarterback, and you're too long. He can't beat you back inside because you're nimble enough to kind of play the angle. But to your point, you're also long enough, and Owen's strong enough where if that guy tries to take a hard outside run to me, I'm taking him, getting hands on, and then as I clear, boom, you're gone. And my quarterback's taken off. And CJ can do that as well. And Kenny Minchie can do that as well in different ways. They're more climb the pocket and let loose of that post route for an 80-yard touchdown. Is where that comes from, where Deuce just might just take off running or throw the 80-yard touchdown. And so, but you also need to be able to have the agility to handle double moves. And when you're 6'8", you're not going to be as sudden as a guy that's more 6'3", 6'4". And this is something where I think Joe Alt gets unfairly criticized by people, that they're just looking for reasons to nitpick. You're not going to be 6'8", and it's not going to look the same as it does for a 6'4" guy with much shorter legs. But can you change direction with ease? And I think Owen does that well. Joe Alt does that exceptionally well. But the other thing too is you don't have to be perfect when you're 6'8" with 34+ inch arms in that regard, because you can easily you can get your hands on. And if you have the natural power, and then like with Owen, I think is going to end up being thicker than Joe up top. Because Owen, I just think, has a naturally thicker body, even though he's still on the thin side, where I think he's going to be a little bit more barrel-chested and just a little bit more there. He's going to have some really good weight room strength. And as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to have those tools, Sean. So when you break down the film, man, it's just like you don't see the big red flags for a 6'8" guy very often. And because they're not often, they're not red flags for me. Because you see him bend, you see him change direction. And if you can do it once, physically can do, like, if I can dunk once, then I can dunk again, right? I don't just, one day I was out there feeling really good and I threw down a windmill and I could never do it again. I either have the physical ability or I don't. You know what I mean? Now, sometimes I may run and I can't dunk, by the way. It's an example. So I can run and I can do all these different things that I want, and I may get a bad start, or I can barely dunk, but I can dunk, but then I get a bad start and I don't get off with the proper timing. I jump more laterally than I do, and I didn't dunk that time, right? But then I do it again right, and I can dunk again. And that's what I say is, like, you either have the ability or you don't. It's not like hitting a baseball where I can only swing hard right down the middle of the plate, and if you throw it right there, I can knock it out of the park. But if I face a good pitcher, I'm not going to ever do that because he's never going to throw that ball right there, right? Like, it's a little bit different deal. Do you have the physical skill to do it or not? And with Owen, we see it enough to know that the physical trait is there. Now it just comes down to repetition, muscle memory, college level coaching to build on the good foundation he's getting in high school, and then getting in that strength program and really filling out. Because, like, that's the thing to me. Like, their running back went to Penn State. I mean, they run the football. Yeah. I mean, they're a team that wants to run the football. He likes to mix it up. He does. And as he gets stronger, he's going to be a dominant run blocker. And that's that right tackle part, Sean, that you talk about, that you could see that. Like, this kid has some of that in him. He's not just a 6'8" finesse guy that's going to be a really good pass pro guy, but he has that in him. Yeah. That's the thing. He has that in him. And it's that all-around ability and potential to me that really sets him apart from some other guys that were on the board for them. And again, he's just going to be massive. Massive kid.
You made me think about something. Would you rather dunk, or would you rather be able to throw the ball 95 miles per hour? Things that you physically can't do.
When I was younger, well, I was a lot closer to being able to throw 95 than I could from dunking when I was in high school. So, I mean, I threw about 90 when I was in high school. But no, I would have much rather thrown 95 when I was younger because it would have been more practical. But now at 45, I'd much rather be able to dunk. Yeah.
If you had one chance, if the good Lord said, BD, I'm going to give you one chance to dunk, and you choose the dunk that you want to complete, which one would it be? Would you do a windmill like Dominique, a Vince Carter 360 windmill?
No. You have the guy right. but you just have the wrong dunk. If I could
Okay.
just do it one time, I would you let it savor a little bit.
Mm.
And it would be a dunk that people don't quite understand. What just happened? And the dunk of all the phenomenal dunks Vince Carter had in that, which to me was the second greatest dunking exhibition I've ever seen, only behind Dominique's the year that he won it. It was the one where he dunked it through and just kind of hung there for a second.
Had his arm.
Because at first you're like, wait a minute, what
happened?
Whoa, wait a minute. He literally, like, okay, it'd have been something like that. Yeah. Because if like Dominique was such a powerful dunker, I'm afraid I'd like shatter my wrist with how hard Dominique slammed that thing through, man. For like a skinnier guy, he was a ferocious dunker.
Very powerful.
And I'd be afraid I'd hurt my hand or something. I need these hands, man. I got to type. I got,
you know what I mean? Do all the type. Yeah.
Do all the cooking. I need my hands, man. So, but no, when I was a kid, 95, because that was more practical. I could have made a career out of it since I did play baseball. But now as a grown up, like how cool would it be to walk into a thing and just be able when I was last place I was coaching at, players when they're playing basketball and I walked in and grabbed the ball and I'm in my, my slacks and my shorts and I kind of, get a kid up and I just pop a three and it's, no, imagine what it would be like if I walked into the room and I was just like handing that to me and I just went, like, okay.
Yo, that would be a moment with the nice IB shorts on. Yeah. I can see that.
Because like if I was able, if you said do it one time, if I was able to just throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball once, people look at me like, oh, that looked fast, but it wouldn't have that same, oh my gosh, did you see that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if I just, I'm at a Notre Dame men's basketball game, ball comes over to me, I'm on the court, just grab it. I know I'm about to go to jail for this, but it's going to be worth it. And you just go out there and you just, boom. Yeah. It'll be worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
I can afford the fine.
Yeah, I'll bail you out, bro. You're lucky that Left himself talks about the dunk contest or the lack of dunk contest they used to have all the time. So you probably would still center stage right there at that game. You would have to do it at the women's game right now because I think the women's game would get more buzz with it.
Yeah, because there'd be
rather
more
than the men's game.
Yeah,
do it at the women's game. Irish Breakdown Podcast. Sean Davis, Brian Driscoll. Excuse me. Subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and share. And if you have not, sign up for the message board at boardsirishbreakdown.com for all the great recruiting intel and great conversations on a daily basis amongst the fan base. All right. If you have a mailbag question, we are going to have a mailbag at the end of the show. Go ahead and put your mailbag questions in right now, and we'll get to those. And let's seal the deal. What's left for the offensive line in the 2025 class, Brian? Like, we have about 2 or 3 guys that still might be on the board that we might be looking to close a deal on. How do you feel about those individuals? And overall, how do you think you're going to end up feeling about the totality of this O-line class?
Well, it's going to be Notre Dame has an interesting decision to make when it comes to recruiting the 2025 offensive line group, because I think this is going to be a big class overall. But the question, Sean, is will they have to make some sacrifices in certain positions to fill up at other spots? Do they have to make a sacrifice, a CJ May, a 4th offensive tackle to make sure that they get a 6th or 7th DB, a 4th receiver, a 4th linebacker? Because you're sitting there saying, hey, we only need 3. You got Kia. Let's say they get a commitment from like Noah McHale, and they get a commitment from, Nathaniel Usu-Boateng. I'm just doing dream scenario here. And all of a sudden, Marco Jones is like, hey, I want to come too. Do you take a 4th offensive tackle, or do you say, okay, we're taking right? That's where they're at. And because there's other positions that are so much stronger than the offensive line, I think you have to consider that in this class. Do you take a 4th offensive tackle, or do you try to get Lincoln Cure to come play tight end for you, or so a kid like that? So I think there's still some decisions to be made for the Notre Dame staff. And so you've got 2 kids on the board right now on the offensive line. You've got Maddie Augustine, who's a very interesting prospect on the board right now from Connecticut, 6'7", 260-pound kid. I have him only as a 3.5-star player right now because he's still very skinny and he's still learning the game. He put on some weight this year, and I think he's having that adjustment period of putting on some weight for them this year. And so there's some tools there. I know he had a great camp with Notre Dame this summer, really impressed the staff. Just started playing football in the last, I think, 2 years, and that's partly why he reclassified. He was originally a 24 kid, reclassified to 25, which better suits his age. And then also, it gives him some time to continue developing as a football player. Staff loves him, even though he's a highly ranked guy, because it's all about the upside. And then the other side of it is you got a kid like Jack Lang from Missouri, who is much more advanced right now than Matty Augustine. And I would argue is in the conversation for who's the best tackle on the board right now, even though I think Owen Strebig has more upside. I think Jack Lang can at least say, hey, right now I can go toe-to-toe with this guy. Although, again, as I said, Owen Strebig has the higher ceiling. So they have to decide, okay, do you say, hey, Jack Lang's a better player, more of a sure thing. We love Matty Augustine's upside, but we're going to hold off on Matty Augustine in order to wait for Jack Lang, knowing that you may not get Jack Lang, because there's been this thing going around, and I'm not sure where it's coming from, that like Notre Dame is on the verge of landing Jack Lang. And Ryan's pushed back on that. I've pushed back on that. And apparently somebody, I don't know, Sean, you don't read other stuff, but somebody on the message board last night in the Notre Dame mailbag, which we do a mailbag for IB members only on the message board, where you ask whatever question you want from Wednesday to Sunday, and I'll answer it. And he said that now people are saying that Notre Dame is slipping with Jack Lang. My response would be, no, they're not. It's people are now getting the correct understanding of where his recruitment is. And so Notre Dame is still in it with Jack Lang, but he has said for a long time, I'm not in any hurry to make a decision. And so if you're Notre Dame, you can run the risk of holding off on Matty Augustine, a guy that you really like, in order to try to shoot for Jack Lang. Then you don't get Jack Lang because he goes somewhere else, because you're recruiting against some big dogs, Alabama, Georgia, a lot of other teams. And now you also don't get Matty Augustine. Or do you say, we'll take Matty Augustine now and still recruit Jack Lang and then decide down the road if we're going to take a fourth guy or not? That's the strategy I would employ if it was up to Notre Dame, is try to close on Matty Augustine soon. And I think the commitment of Owen Strebig could expedite that process a little bit, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm not hinting about something I know. I believe that it could. And I said that to a friend of mine. I said, I believe when Owen Strebig commits, you're going to see the dominoes start to fall pretty quickly of guys. You're going to find out real quickly how bad certain guys want to be in the class. So you call up Jack Lang, if that's your guy. Hey, listen, man, I want to take in one more offensive lineman. I know you doing this, and this, but if you want to be part of this, you need to make that decision now. If he's not ready to make that decision and Matty Augustine is, then you can make that move. Or you just may say, hey, look, whichever one of you two wants to come first, we'll take him. Because I know the staff is very high on Jack Lang, but I also know there's members of the staff, too, that are very high on Matty Augustine's potential. Like they see a guy that – and the attractive thing about Matty Augustine for me, Sean, is he is a project. So there's no rush to get him going early. He's not going to come here and be like, well, I didn't play as a freshman, I'm out of here. Where maybe a more highly ranked guy may feel that way. With Matty, it's like you're going to need time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you've got Charles Jagasaw, you've got Sullivan Absher, and you've got Kirby Lambert and Styles Prescott and now Owen Strebig and Will Black. Take it. Do you take that chance on the higher ceiling guy? And I do believe this staff is really high on Matty Augustine's potential, but they also know that of the four guys on the board, he probably has the lowest floor as of right now as well. So there's three decisions they could go, Sean. All that to say this: you tell Matty Augustine, hold off, and you wait for Jack Lang. You take Matty Augustine now and shut her down and say, we're just taking three. Or you take Matty Augustine if he wants to come, and I hope that he does. And I think Notre Dame leads for him. They've led for him for a long time. It's kind of similar to the Owen Strebig. I think it's more of a question of when, not if. But as long as that continues, and then you keep recruiting Jack Lang until you're at the position where you've got to kind of make some decisions on numbers. The third one is what I would do if I was Notre Dame. But I think it's more likely that they take Matty Augustine and shut it down than they tell Matty Augustine no to wait for someone else. That's my read on it, because I do think the staff likes him quite a bit. They do.
Look, I love Jack Lang. I totally agree with you. I think right now, if you just put them side by side and you looked at the junior film, you'll get no debate from me saying that, yo, Jack Lang can definitely go blow for blow with Owen Strebig. If you chose him to be the better prospect right now, I can live with that. But the upside of Owen Strebig is huge. But I think the upside of Owen Strebig's commitment to Notre Dame today is going to have an impact like you spoke about, because I think the other guys were waiting because they knew that he was a guy that really loves Notre Dame, that's been to Notre Dame 6 times, and they're saying, okay, I want to come, but if he doesn't come,
right,
and he's been 6 times, then I have to take a step back and think. And his commitment now really starts to tug on the hearts of the other guys left on the board in a way to where they feel like, okay,
and there's not as much room now.
right.
So it's like, okay, before Owen committed, I kind of had time. They're
Right.
taking at least 3. There's only 1 guy in the class. I can take my time. Now it's like, hey, there may only be 1 spot left. So how bad do you want to be here? What do you want? What's more important to you? Being in part of this class or having your fun and doing the visits? There's no wrong answer, but
Yeah.
you know, one of those answers may end up with you not being in this class.
And that's not something a kid wants to do, not be able to go to a school that he really wants to go to because there's no spot available.
Right.
That's
a tough one.
That's the worst. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. Irish breakdown, great conversation about the newest member of the 2025 class, Owen Strebig, Catholic Memorial, Waukesha, Wisconsin, 4-star, ranked 66 nationally, according to Rivals. And I think he has a chance. If he can take that next step in film that Charles Jagusah did from his junior to his senior year, maybe he jumps into the top 50.
Oh, he's certainly a better player than Charles was as a junior.
Mm-hmm.
Now Charles always had like elite physical talent.
Physical gifts, yeah.
But as far as like where he is technical wise, he's a much better player than Charles was as a junior. Yeah. Charles took a monster leap as a senior, to your point. Yes, correct. And I don't want to make it seem like Owen's this super raw player that doesn't know how to play the game. He has been coached well, but he's still just a junior in high school.
Yeah.
And if a junior in high school had reached his peak or his max from a technical standpoint, that would concern me, because that would mean he's not going to get a lot better.
Yeah.
So certainly a big one. And it's funny, Jack Lang at 6'6" is the shortest of all the tackles they're recruiting in this class, because Matty Augustine is listed at 6'7".
That's incredible.
So they're getting longer. There's no doubt. I'll tell you this. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to win a title the next 5 years, 5-6 years, but here's what I'll tell you right now, Sean. But the kind of kids they're recruiting on the offensive line last couple years, D-line with Christopher Burgesses and the Bryce Youngs and guys, Notre Dame's going to at least look good getting off the bus. They're going to look intimidating getting off the bus. There's no doubt. And, you think back to like the first time Notre Dame got on that championship stage in the Brian Kelly era. And, Zach Martin was a great player, but you were like 6'4", 290 at left tackle. You were 6'3", 300 at left guard. You were 6'3", 300 at center. You were who was the right guard on that team? Golik was at center. Who was the right guard on that team? Do you remember who the right guard was? 2012 team. No, Golik was a guard. And then Braxton Cave was
the center. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had like a 6'3", 305-pound center. And then Christian Lombard was like the biggest guy at like 6'5", 305.
Yeah.
Think about that. That was not a very big offensive line.
No.
Now you look at it and you're just like, 6'7", 330. Gerby's going to be 6'6", 320. Styles is going to be 6'6", 315. Owen Strebig is going to be 6'8", 325, 330. You're now in a situation where you're now massive. You're going to be massive up front. But the thing I like about it is none of these guys are stiffs. Solomon Absher is going to be, he's 6'6 and a half, 330, 325. He's not, he's an explosive, not come off the ball quick and blow you up kind of guy. Sam Pendleton, 6'4. He's one of the small guys, is 6'4, 310.
Right.
But these guys can all move. And that's where you start getting excited is if Joe Rudolph can coach, this Notre Dame offensive line for the next 5-6 years is going to be tremendous because the talent coming into the program is exceptional. And, boy, it's hard to not get fired up about that, Sean.
So, ladies and gentlemen, when Marcus Freeman walks out of the tunnel next year, he did not shrink. The offensive lineman just got a little bit taller and bigger. He has not shrunk.
Well, I mean, think about that, Sean. You had 6'8", 320-pound Joe Wald at left tackle this year, and 6'6", 310-pound to 315-pound Blake Fisher at right tackle. That's going to be small compared to what it's going to look like the next few years.
Absolutely. We have true freshmen walking in
Right
at 6'6", 300, 305. So
Charles Jagasol was 6'7", 330.
yeah.
Sullivan Absher was listed as 6'6.5", 326. Gerby Lambert's going to be 6'6", 315, 320. You know, I mean, Tosh Baker's 6'8", 315. I mean, they're getting big. There's no doubt about that.
We've traditionally had smaller centers.
Right.
And that's changed with Ashton Craig a little bit.
4.5, 305. Yeah. He'll be 310, 312 when it's all said and done. Yeah. Yeah. You are correct. You are correct.
All right. Well, that's it for this part of the show where we've highlighted Owen Strebig and his commitment to Notre Dame. Don't forget the Irish Breakdown YouTube page. Like it, subscribe to it, hit the notification bell, and share and let everybody know about Irish Breakdown. Then go to boardsirishbreakdown.com for all your recruiting intel. Like you said, the mailbag that's there for the fans Wednesday through the weekend. Did I say that correctly?
Yes. So like I'll just kind of, just as long as you all keep popping in questions, I'll keep answering them. That's basically that's where it is. Yep. And
absolutely,
it's only for message board people. It's we don't take the best questions and make it an article. It's only for the message board folks.
Yeah. So man, if you have not, become a member at boardsirishbreakdown.com. Up next, we have the mailbag. So stay tuned right here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I'm Sean Davis along with Brian Driscoll. We just got through highlighting the commitment of Owen Strebig to the 2025 class, ranked 66 nationally, Catholic Memorial, Waukesha, Wisconsin. And now we get to the fans' favorite part of the show, right, Brian? It comes with some of the best and craziest questions. It is the mailbag. So if you have a mailbag question, make sure you put in MB and then go ahead and list your comment or your question, and we'll get to it. You want to bring them up? And
I'll go and bring them up. You just read them. Yep.
All right.
We got some. The show is now available on Rumble. Just a couple things. Obviously, the show is live on YouTube and Rumble now. Also, we're partnering with Spotify in certain ways. So if you're a podcast listener and you listen on Spotify, we thank you for that. And obviously thank Spotify for their attempt to help us continue to grow and build up Irish Breakdown. So some of these questions, Sean, are going to be from some of our Rumble subscribers. And so we obviously are going to start things off right now with Real Estate 2024, who is asking this question from the Rumble show.
Hey, thank you, Real Estate 2024. Does Notre Dame win 15 or 16 games this year? Championship.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, if they go 12-0, they'd win the most they can win is 16. So 15 could mean a championship if there's a regular season loss. But so yeah, that I mean, do they? I have no idea. Can they? I think that's a question that I feel more comfortable speaking on, Sean, and I think they can. Now, there's a lot that Notre Dame needs to still grow and develop and prove. I've talked about this, is Riley that Leonard guy or not? I think he can be. He's got a lot to prove. I think the receiving core's got a chance to be really good, but they got a lot to prove. The offensive line's got a lot of talent. It's going to be very young. And there's all these, linebacking core is going to be more talented than it was last year. It's going to be very young. There's a lot of question marks about this team, but I got to say, Sean, the thing that has me fired up is just the overall depth of talent. I mean, the position that I'm most concerned about on this football team is a position where you have a unanimous All-American coming back in Xavier Watts. You know what I mean? Like, that's the position I'm most worried about. You're talking about how the running back room has changed. Where in 2019, Tony Jones Jr.'s banged up against Georgia, so they basically can't run the football the whole game because they had nobody else that they felt comfortable turning to now it's like you got to lose 4 guys before you get to Aeneas Williams or Devin Ford. You know what I mean? Like, it's just they've done such a great job in such a short period of time of really rebuilding this thing. And it's the current staff, but, also there's been other coaches who were gone who played a big role in it. Obviously a lot of the D linemen, Mike Elson recruited. Lance Taylor did a really nice job getting Jadarian Price. He recruited Jadarian Price. And then, of course, Coach McCullough's taken it to another level. So it's exciting when you think about the talent is there, but at the same time, if we're being realistic, Notre Dame still has a lot it has to prove as a program. Marcus Freeman still has a lot he has to prove as a head football coach before I'm ready to say, yes, they're going to win a championship this year. Do I think Notre Dame, if all the things happen and all the ingredients kind of get put perfectly together, do I think Notre Dame can be a team that can win a championship this year? I absolutely do. Because I think there's going to be better top level teams this year. I think Ohio State has a chance to be really good. I think Georgia has a chance to be really good. I think Texas has a chance to be really good. There's some teams that have a chance to be really good that you could look back and say, boy, that team might have smacked 2023 Michigan. But I think Notre Dame's also one of those teams that can be that. And I don't think that you look and say, boy, you just don't have the skill to compete with that team, or you just don't have the line. No, they do. It's just, can the ingredients all come together? Or because like the concern is, Sean, is like, okay, this position has a chance to be special, but can it be that in 2024? Do we have to wait to 2025?
Right.
But then when we get to 2025 and that position is special, now you're not as good over here because you lost these guys. That's been the big thing for Notre Dame. There have been years they had a championship caliber defense. There have been years they've had a championship caliber offense. They've never had those two things in the same year since like 1993, right? And that's the question mark I don't have. And until Coach Freeman shows me he can avoid those Louisville, Stanford letdown weeks, until he shows me he can go on the road and beat the best teams, something they have not done yet. Last 2 years, they lost at Ohio State, they lost at USC, they lost at Louisville, they lost at Clemson, and they almost lost at Duke. Right? This is a team that has not played as well on the road against the better teams. You've got to answer those questions first before I can start saying they're going to win a title. But I do think that the talent and the coaching staff and a lot of other things in place to where this is the most optimistic I've been in the Marcus Freeman era, that those questions will get answered.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at, Sean.
It's interesting you bring that up because some of his biggest wins in his first season was on the road at North Carolina, at Syracuse, right?
BYU was away from home.
BYU was away. It was the Shamrock series, but it was away from home. But then he had the big Clemson win at home. But like you said, those two, the home loss, then they had the loss, not loss, but they won a close game against Cal that really was uninspiring. So then they come into this season, you figure they're much better as a team. They end up being one game better, but the road is just like, and we're going to talk about this. We could tease this. It's one of the
started off well.
Yeah.
I mean, with the NC State game, started off well, but then they were not a very good team away from home after that.
And it just showed. We're going to talk about that on the first RTCF show, right? Returning production and all of that stuff. So, man, that's a great question. Real estate 2024. We'll dig deeper into that on the first RTCF show. But I agree with you, man. It's possible. I believe that I'm waiting to see if there is a couple of mega teams. I think is really going to the first year they expanded playoff, I think has an opportunity to really be the perfect landscape for a great playoff. I really feel that way because I don't know if it's just one team. Of course, Ohio State's done a lot and invested a lot to try and be that team.
Sure.
I don't know if I still trust the quarterback position right now.
Well, and that's, I mean, I still don't trust the offensive line. I trust Will Howard a lot more than I trust the offensive line. I mean, but like this, so you're correct. Ohio State has spent a lot of money, and I have no problem with that. Good on them. But to me, when I look at what they've added and I look at what they've coming back, I mean, this isn't even the most talented offensive Ohio State team they've had in the last 4 years.
No.
I mean, this isn't going to be as talented as a team that 2 years ago lost to Georgia with C.J. Stroud and Paris Johnson and, forget the name of DeJuan Jones and, what I mean? So it's like, do they have a chance to be really, really good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Georgia have a chance to be really, really good? Yeah. Does Texas have a chance to be really, really good? Yeah. Do I see any of those teams? And this is my question that I'm asking for you, Sean, to kind of lead you back into, since I kind of interrupted and lead you back into it. Can any of those teams be LSU 19? Can any of those teams be Bama 20 or Clemson 18? And that's the thing that I don't think they are, in my opinion, which is why I do think that it's there for the taking for a team like Notre Dame, because you're going to have to beat some big dogs. But number one, you won't be the one that has to beat all those big dogs because of the playoff format. But number two is your team has a chance to stack up a lot better against them than you have in the past. And that's a big difference to me.
I will say this. I think I'm not totally sold on Carson Beck,
Agree.
but he's solid.
Yeah.
He's a good quarterback. I don't know if he can be as clutch as a Stetson Bennett. Only time will tell. He had his opportunity in the SEC championship game, and he didn't pass the test. I will say Georgia, in a lot of ways, had to play a lot of young players last year, and they still were one game away from the college football playoffs. So they have an opportunity. Man, losing their defensive back coach was a huge loss as he goes to Syracuse and took a lot of players from Georgia with him while getting other players in the transfer portal. But Kirby coaches defensive backs. That's his strength as well. So it's going to be interesting. Texas is a team where this is a test for Sark to see if he can maintain that level of excellence. Now that he's gotten there, can you maintain it? I mean, he has the quarterbacks. I mean, he has Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. I mean, quarterback play won't be an issue. He's a really good playmaker.
He'll
they
have
recruit the
skill.
wide receiver position well.
O-line should be pretty good this year.
But they lose
Defense
two
brings
big
a lot
ones.
back. Yeah.
The two big ones they lose on the
Coming up
D-line.
middle? Yeah. Literally.
Yes.
Yeah. Devondre Swift is not a small man.
No.
Well, and Sean, but here's kind of thing to it. Like, even with Georgia, like, yes, this is going to be a very good Georgia team. There's no doubt. This isn't meant to disparage Georgia, but like this team won't be as talented as it was a couple of years ago, in my opinion.
No,
I mean, look, when Georgia won their last title, they had Ladd McConkey, who just dominated the Senior Bowl. They had A.D. Mitchell. They had Brock Bowers. They don't have any of those guys. And yes, they'll have talent, right? And again, would I be shocked if Georgia wins the title this year? No, not at all. I mean, they've got the kind of team that they could do that. But when I look at the players they have, Sean, and the guys that they've signed in the portal, I mean, they've got some good players in the portal. But like, does Trevor Etienne move the needle for me? For all of a sudden, I'm feeling like Georgia's this phenomenal team. No, he doesn't. Does London Humphreys do that for me? No, not. I mean, they're good players. But I don't think that Georgia has the same way better than everybody else like they did in 2021, in my opinion. And even in 2022 to a degree, because everybody talks about how they were one game away. And I'm like, yeah, but they played a really weak schedule last year and were trailing at halftime of like half their games. Well, here's their schedule this year. Clemson and Atlanta, at Bama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, home against Tennessee, Florida on a neutral field, home against Auburn, at Kentucky. You play like you did last year, you're catching 3 L's. Right. That's a thing. I mean, and that's part of it too, is some of these teams are going to some of these leagues are going to sort of annihilate themselves a little bit. Some team that you're worried about is going to not make the playoff because they had that gauntlet that you just couldn't ignore. And that's true for a lot of these teams, Sean. So that's why I look at it and say, man, like in Notre Dame, let's be honest, does not have, as on paper at least, as daunting of a schedule as they did in 2017 or in even last year in 2022 or 2023, in my opinion. So there's a lot of things that for Notre Dame are setting them up, but there's a lot this team still has to prove. I just think it's going to be a really fun football year, Sean. I just look at some of these teams and I'm just like, you look at the schedules, and I hate the super conference thing, but I'll tell you what, in year one, they're going right.
Yes.
They're making it right. They're saying, hey, we're not going to have Texas avoid the big dogs. We're not going to have Oregon avoid the big, you know what I mean? Like Michigan, you're heading out to Washington, next year. You're going to play Oregon. And so that it's going to be a fun year, man.
Yeah.
And I don't think Notre Dame's schedule's loaded like it has been in other years, but still Notre Dame, Florida State's still going to be a big deal. Notre Dame, Texas A&M still going to be a big deal. Notre Dame, Louisville still going to be a really good football game. And Georgia Tech's a team to keep an eye on because they're doing some really good things in the portal, and they finished the year, and then they got some athletes to worry about. So just overall, I think this is going to be a fun year, Sean. It is going to be a fun year of football. Yeah. Yes, they did play Georgia. I mean, they just didn't have the horses. But to your point, this was the most confident Georgia Tech has ever looked. Not ever. This is the most confident Georgia Tech has looked against Georgia in years, where they believed we can play with them. No, they couldn't. Right? At the end of the day, they couldn't. Georgia didn't play that well and still beat Georgia Tech. But I thought the Brent Key hire was not a good hire. But in year one, he did some really good things.
Absolutely.
with that staff. He did, or with
Absolutely.
that team. He did some.
If
Really
I'm not mistaken, for a while, I thought they had Louisville beat.
Oh, they were smacking Louisville early.
Yes.
I mean,
Into
they
the
were up like 3
4th quarter.
touchdowns. Yeah, and Louisville came storming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing some good things. We got another one from Real Estate 2024, Sean.
Can Owen Strebig play guard? Heck, if he's athletic
Yes,
enough.
but I wouldn't want him to.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I would rather put Will Black there than Owen Strebig. If I had to
That's a
put
good
one of
call.
the 2 kids from this class, I would rather put Will Black there. I just think he's a little less long, and he's got a little bit more of that short area type of game where I could see Will Black, and it may not seem like much, but that inch and a half of lack of height. Will Black's listed at 6'7". Is he really 6'7"? I'm not sure. Owen Strebig's every bit of 6'7" and a half, 6'8", right? So I think that extra inch and a half is also important when you're talking about from the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Now, if Deuce Knight is the quarterback when these kids are on the field, it makes it a little bit better because Deuce is 6'5" plus. But if you got CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie out there, do you really want a couple 6'7" guards? I don't, even in a shotgun offense, I don't know if that's necessarily the ideal situation. So
No.
Could he? Yes. Will he? I hope not. I hope not. But to your point, John, if you're moving him to guard because he's just too good not to play, but you've got Charles Jagasaw and Gerby Lambert or Gerby and Styles Prescott or whatever combination, and they're just dudes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I get it. Then you need to get him on the field. Then you figure it out. You figure out a way to make it work.
Big Leaks Burner, thank you for the mailbag question. How drastically has the perception of Notre Dame changed on the recruiting trail? That's a good question.
Oh, it's night and day. I mean, you used to have this expression of, we're Notre Dame shopping down a different aisle. And it just kind of resolved yourself to when you saw a kid get an offer from certain schools or you were going to battle against certain schools, you were just kind of like, they're not going to get that guy. Or they may get him, but he's then going to flip. Where now it's just kind of like Notre Dame's the team that you're worried about. Like, oh, shoot. Like Mickens is in on this one. Like, we got to be worried about this one a little bit. And we haven't even seen the Mike Denbrock effect take really come into play yet. And it will. I don't know if it'll be 25 class. Maybe it will, the receivers. It'll definitely come at some point in time because, Mike Denbrock was a dude on the recruiting trail as well throughout his entire career. And so it is really interesting, but it just goes to show what having a dynamic head coach can do for you on the recruiting trail, but especially when you have that guy at Notre Dame. And you also look at the way that when Chad Bowden first kind of got started, it was him, but they've done a great job of giving Dre Brown kind of a platform to build himself up. Chad does a great job of making sure that Dre is in almost all the videos that they do of Chad. He always tries to make sure that Dre is in them as well because he understands I can't be everywhere, although he tries. And Dre's done a good job. That they're really building up the staff around those guys a lot more too, which helps. So it doesn't just have to be the head coach and the 9 assistants like it used to be. Now it's 10 assistants plus the head coach plus the recruiting director plus all the other guys that are part of it, and it just makes recruiting a lot. I mean, they're committing legit resources to Notre Dame's recruiting efforts, including outbidding Michigan to keep Chad here. I mean, that's a big part of it. Outbidding LSU and Texas A&M to get Mike Denbrock, making sure that Mike Mickens isn't going anywhere. Notre Dame has made a significant financial commitment to the football team this offseason. And a big part of that, Sean, is this. It's 2 things. One, the new TV deal and the new apparel deal. You got more money to spend.
Right.
Number 2, there's faith that it's an investment. And we have a much more faith that this guy is going to cash out on that investment, turn it into, a growth for us than the guy before. And that's a big part of it. And so Notre Dame is kind of a cool place again. And a lot of it comes down to Marcus Freeman. Now, here's the thing, Sean. That only lasts so long before he's got to back it up with wins.
Right.
And that's why finishing the way they did after the Clemson loss was so important. Not only did you win your next 3 games, you destroyed your next 3 opponents, got a lot of that negativity out, and really built some positive momentum going into the offseason. You needed that because, again, after the Clemson game, man, we were sitting here like, dude, this team is reeling. You lost to Clemson, you lost to Louisville, you almost lost to Duke, you lost to Ohio State. Like, how are you going to finish? Because a lot of that excitement about Marcus Freeman was kind of wavering, and they went out 2 weeks later after Clemson and just boat raced Wake Forest, dominated Stanford, and then went out in the bowl game with a bunch of backups. I know Oregon State did too, but just from start to finish, we're just outclassed Oregon State the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, so a lot of the momentum is back, and so that was huge. But now Coach Freeman's got to build on that, and they've got to be a playoff team this year. To me, to really take advantage and take it to the next level, you've got to not only make the playoff, you got to win a game. That to me is the minimum of how can Notre Dame build on this momentum and really take that next step from a recruiting standpoint. They got to do those two things, in my opinion.
Do you have a floor for success? Is it making it to the playoffs is success? Winning a game in the playoffs is the floor of success for this season? Where do you have it right now?
10-2 with a postseason win is the floor for what can be considered a successful season. Even if it's 10-2 and you don't make the playoff and you win a bowl game, you go 11-2, that's a successful season. What I'm talking about is a needle-moving season. 11-2 simply just continues the slow and steady growth under Marcus Freeman. It doesn't put you on the level with Georgia. It doesn't mean that you've arrived. It doesn't mean that, because you're 10-2 against an okay schedule and you won whatever bowl game you were part of. That's progress, and it's always about progress. But to move the needle, to kind of kick that door down and say, you have to worry about us on the recruiting trail and on the football field, and now that you got to worry about us on the football field, we're even scarier on the recruiting trail. It's got to be playoff and a win, at least one win in the playoff. That's what moves the needle. And your loss in the next round, if it does come into quarters, better be competitive. To me, that moves the needle. That tells kids, hey, we're getting closer. That's why you got to come here and not go to that school. Come here, be the first here. If you're the first here compared to the third there or the fourth there or the second there, you're a legend, right? I mean, that's the reality. I mean, Tony Rice, was a Heisman runner-up with 2 touchdown passes and 9 interceptions. Right? He's a legend in Notre Dame. Why? Because he won at Notre Dame.
He won at Notre Dame. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll look, Big League, I think the narrative was being changed the first year Marcus Freeman was the head coach. And it is a slow burn. When you can say, people can say what they want to, they can criticize, but when you get Peyton Bourne, Dante Moore, Keon Keeley, all wanting to come to Notre Dame simultaneously, they lost all 3, but you weren't getting guys like that in the class previously. That was changing. That was going to a different level in going after the talent, the top talent in a recruiting class and getting them attracted to Notre Dame. And then you take it the next step where you get maybe one of those guys, right? But you're in the fight. You're in the fight. But that has to be paired with what Brian said. You have to start pairing it with winning on the field, because that's going to give you the ability now to close on some of those guys, right? Yeah, it's great to have Deuce Knight. I'm just going to throw a name out there. It would be even greater to have Deuce Knight with Jamie French. I'm just throwing the name out there. I'm not starting anything, not saying anything, but if you come with that pair from the South, coming up the South Bend, now you're talking about a true gap closing class, and it can still be a gap closing class if that combination doesn't manifest. But my point is, winning on the field, as you pointed out, B, is going to be the biggest turn up. Right. Because Notre Dame has already turned up the fire on the recruiting trail. And the reason we know it is because we see the other schools joining together to recruit against Notre Dame.
And it has been a while since they've done that. They did that during the Charlie era, early on under Charlie. They did it under Lou. I've said this before. Florida State would rather lose a kid to Florida than Notre Dame. Alabama would rather lose a kid to LSU, Auburn, or Georgia than to Notre Dame. That's just a fact. Because they know that if these kids if a kid like Kyle Hamilton goes to Notre Dame and succeeds, gets his degree, which Kyle came back after his rookie year in the NFL, he's a second-year player now, right? Came back after his first year, finished his degree, and I believe graduated, correct?
Yeah.
So he's got his Notre Dame degree, was a first-round draft pick, now he's an all-pro, now he's considered one of the best in the game, and all of a sudden, that's kind of like, holy crap. Because now it's like, wait a minute, I can go to Notre Dame, get a degree, get a legitimate education, be an All-American, be a first-round draft pick, and go on to become a star in the NFL. And now I have the educational background to turn my $100 million I may make as an NFL player into $500 million because I understand how to properly market myself and do all these kind of things.
Yeah.
That's what they're afraid of, Sean. They're definitely afraid of that because they know, especially now that Notre Dame can give NIL money, they all understand the brand. If a CJ Carr or a Deuce Knight goes to Notre Dame and balls out, or hopefully both, like, especially with like Deuce's personality, like ideal world, Kenny or CJ kind of take that next leap and then Deuce comes in behind him. But Deuce has that personality. It's just a little different. And then Kenny and CJ, who are just kind of quiet. I just want to go do my job and kick your butt kind of guys. Deuce wants to do his job. He wants to kick butt. He wants to be a leader, but then he wants to tell everybody about it, which I kind of like because that's kind of how I was as a player. You know what I mean? Like, which isn't going to surprise anyone, right? But all of a sudden, let's say Deuce comes to Notre Dame. Let's say Deuce is as good as advertised. All of a sudden, who's going to have the biggest? Who's going to be on Heisman House? Who's going to be on this big time company's advertising? It's not going to be the kid from USC or the kid from Bama. It's going to be the kid from Notre Dame, right? That moves the needle, right? And so those are the things. But it all comes down to you got to win.
Yeah,
you got to win. And you don't see Jaden Daniels in those commercials. Heisman Trophy went. Why? He's not. He doesn't have that same charismatic personality.
Yeah.
It's also his team didn't win. And so I look at it, Sean, and to me, that's the thing about Notre Dame is that you still have to kick down that door on a couple other things, right? You still need that first round skill, receiver. You still need that first round quarterback. You still need, and that's why, some of the guys you look at on the team now is like, man, they need Benjamin Morrison to be that dude next year.
Yeah.
They need Riley Leonard to be that dude next year. They need, some of these receivers to really be that dude. Because if you start putting guys into the first round and stuff like that, it's like, okay, now, they need Riley Leonard to have a breakout year and be a second round draft pick.
Yeah.
Those are all things that you look at and say, man, if they can start doing that kind of stuff, it's like, how do you compete with Notre Dame? Yeah, you can offer them a little bit more money, but Notre Dame's pitch to that has been easy.
Yeah.
Like if you're a kid that just wants the most upfront money now, you're never coming to Notre Dame because you weren't coming to Notre Dame before because you were still taking money under the table.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is now there's a lot of kids that understand. We've seen them. Jeremiah Loves, Jaden Greathouses. We've seen these kids, Sean, where they leave six figures on the table because they understand leaving that on the table now, I'm going to quadruple that in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
For other reasons. And Notre Dame's pitch now that they can offer money is so much easier. That helps as well. But at the end of the day, it's always about the guys selling that pitch that comes down to. I could have Sean, you and I could go on the road and you could, you and I could be pitching a similar product, and I'm just like, hello, sir, I'm giving you facts and data, and you're out there and you're charming and guess who they're going to buy from?
Yeah.
It's the guy that's charming and charismatic.
Yeah.
Now, the product has to be good, but if the product is good and I have all these things and this personality, and it's not just Marcus, it's Chad, it's like, and that's what's changed the game. And the only thing I'll disagree with you on, I think it started to change before Marcus Freeman became the head coach. I think it changed when he got hired as the coordinator.
Good
and all
call.
of a sudden, Benjamin Morrison, Jalen Sneed, Tyson Ford, Junior Tuiamaka. I mean, all those kids immediately Junior Tuiamaka went from committed to USC to uncommitted and trending to Notre Dame within 2 weeks of Marcus Freeman being hired. And what changed? He offered him a scholarship. Benjamin Morrison wasn't really on Notre Dame's radar that much until Marcus Freeman and Mike Mickens started getting on him. Jaden Mickey didn't have an offer. Benjamin didn't have an offer. Jalen Sneed didn't have an offer. Josh Burnham was trending to Michigan. Right. I mean, they weren't. And then all of a sudden, Marcus comes, Chad's here. He's the defensive recruiting coordinator. And all of a sudden, boom, those kids start picking him. And then, it built on when Coach Freeman became the head coach. And the ironic thing is, since he's become head coach, they've recruited offense better than they have defense since he's become head coach, which is kind of amazing.
The greatest amount of respect that was paid to Notre Dame in recruiting circles was that the national champs came after your recruiting coordinator.
Bingo.
That's enough said. That lets you know how people respect Notre Dame on this recruiting trail and how people look at Notre Dame and what they've been able to do the last couple of years.
Yeah. I'm going to take this one, Sean, from Real Estate 2024. SD2 Mikes, that would be you, Sean. Great to see you. Hope your health is doing better, man.
Oh, it is, man. Thank you so much for all the congratulatory messages in the chat today about what Brian announced and my health and everything. It's always a pleasure. Yep.
Also from Paul Suetta, glad to see more of you, Mr. Davis. Always enjoy your takes and professionalism.
I appreciate that, Paul.
All right, let's get back on track here.
David Jones, thank you for the mailbag question. Do you foresee a serious battle between Gerby and Owen a year from now? What about any of the other freshman offensive linemen, Jones, Tarek, etc.?
No, I don't, because I think Gerby is just ahead of where Owen is, in my opinion, and he'll have a year head start. I think Owen's a kid that's going to need a year to get in the weight room, get some flexibility improvement and those type of things. I think Owen's going to probably need a year for that. I think it's going to be more about, him battling for whatever that number 2 spot is when Charles Jagasaw leaves would be my guess. If Gerby's already got a spot, but I wouldn't necessarily put it past him. I don't think it's going to be a year from now. I'm not saying that it won't be a battle between Gerby and Owen at some point. I'm just saying it won't be a year from now. If there's a battle between the two, it might be 2 years from now, more so than a year from now would be my thing. As far as any other freshman lineman, Christopher Tarek will be a redshirt freshman now. I think Peter Jones is probably. I did a show today on superlative, Sean, and I talked about the guys with the highest floors in the class. And Peter Jones is one of my guys, my 3 highest floors in the offensive class. I mean, I think that kid's got a chance to help out pretty early on. But there's going to be great competition. I mean, Pat Coogan and Billy Shrouth are going to be the starting guards. I think that Rocco Spindler is going to have something to say about that. I think Sam Pendleton's going to have something to say about that. I think Sullivan Absher is going to have something to say about that. Oh, Ashton Craig is the present and future at center. I think Joe Otting's going to have something to say about that. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to have to be competition. And so I think that's a good thing. And there's a lot of those kids. I mean, I don't think we should write off Ty Chan just yet. And we don't talk a lot about Christopher Tarek because he was the lowest ranked kid in that class. He's 6'5", 330 pounds. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about that. So I think there's going to be I hope there's some major battles in the next couple of years. Number one, you got to allow battles to happen as a coach. You do, let's be honest. And number two, guys got to step up and compete in those battles. And I'm hoping that one of the big culture changes that Notre Dame has to have is, Sean, you know this, and you know this partly because of our conversations, but even more so because of, I know, conversations you've had with Malik and some of the foreign players that come on. There was a culture of wait your turn at Notre Dame under Brian Kelly. And that's one of the things that Marcus Freeman's got to beat out of the program. There's no waiting your turn. If you're a senior and a 2-year starter and you don't put in the work this offseason to get better, I have no problem playing that sophomore who is putting in all the work to take your job. This isn't a, like, I'm trying to think of the proper word, Sean, but this is about this is a very much a what have you done for me lately type of sport, as it should be.
And what do you always tell me?
Right.
If the youngster is here and the veteran is here and the difference isn't that much,
right,
play the youngster.
But like from an experience prep, but if the talent of the youngster and the veteran is here, but the level of play is only here, give me the younger guy.
Give me the younger guy. And a great example of that was the Dumas Johnson kid at Georgia, who was like the captain,
right?
And got injured. True freshman comes in, he gets healthy, he can't get his job back, he transfers.
Right. Well, saw to Notre Dame. I mean, going into bowl prep, nobody thought that Charles Jagasaw was going to be the starting left tackle in the bowl game. But he got a chance. The first few practices, they kind of moved everybody around, and Charles just said, hey, this is my shot. I'm going to go take it. He could have said, hey, freshman year, I've only played 5 snaps all year. My time will come in the spring. No, Charles said, hey, guys, Joe's gone. Blake's gone.
It's my time.
I got a chance here.
Yeah.
And what I was told, Sean, and I've reported this on the show before, this chair here is not comfortable. I have to bring one of my office chairs over. This thing is very uncomfortable. But I was told that the plan going into the bowl prep was not at all to play Charles Jagasaw left tackle. They just wanted to give him some work there, and they were moving guys all around. But he was so good that they were like, "Uh-oh."
The light.
That's what we talk about. You got to force Charles just said, this is mine. I'm going to go take it. Not that I deserve this
Yeah.
or I'm owed this. I want this, and I'm going to go seize it. And that's the thing you want to see. And to your point now, Dumas Johnson, who started on a national championship team, is now transferred to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And playing somewhere else. And that's where you're at, man. I mean, we saw that last year.
We saw that with Ashton Craig and Zeke Correll.
Correct. Yes.
The staff had a decision to make.
Right. And Zeke, we love you, but we're ready to turn the page. And we saw that at corner last year when Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart ended up both kind of getting hurt. You say, man, Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray stepped in, didn't miss a beat. And so now Cam's gone. Notre Dame doesn't even think twice about going into the portal for a corner. No, we don't need a portal corner. We got Benjamin and Jay, because when they had their chance, they seized it. And now they weren't good enough to say, sorry, Cam, you're not going to get this job when you come back, right? But now you feel so much better about the future because they took advantage of that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so that's the thing, is you need to see that is you may only get that chance once. And what do you do with it in that moment? And some guys have taken advantage of it. I mean, Jadarian Price, right? Audric Estime steps out. What does Jadarian do? Goes into the bowl game, runs for 100 yards, makes a ton of plays, and now all everybody ever wanted to talk about was Jeremiah Love. Now it's like, boy, this two-headed monster at running back could end up being a thing. And, now you and I aren't surprised by that.
No, because before the
some
injury,
of the people in this chat can, but yes.
He was supposed to be the starter, according to some people.
No, Sean, I'll tell you right now, it was from a coach at Notre Dame told me that. Yeah. Not here anymore. But he said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This was before he got hurt. Before he got hurt, I had a Notre Dame football coach on offense tell me the best running back we've had this spring by far, direct quote, by far is JD.
Yeah.
Talking about Jadarian Price. And I'm like, that's with Chris Tyree, Audric Estime, Logan Diggs. You know what I mean? Like, by far. And then he goes out in the spring game and he catches a screen and takes it 50 yards for a touchdown. So, but those are the things, man. And you want those hungry players that are going to compete in battle. And you need more of those. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. USMA87, thank you for the mailbag question. How much taller can Owen get before he's too tall and loses the bend?
Well, I don't know if too tall is about the bend. I think the bend is more about how his body. I mean, you could be 6'4" and lose the ability to bend. I think the lack of height or the issue with height would not so much be about the ability to bend. It's about, I don't care how much you bend, you're too tall to get down that low and play at that pad level. You know what I mean? And I mean, about another inch. It's about all I could hopefully see him going. I don't know that he's going to he didn't make a big jump in height from sophomore to junior year. I don't see him making another jump in height from junior to senior. I think now it's more about filling out those other spots. Would be
Agreed.
Yeah.
Jason Smith, thank you. SD, would you rather dunk one time in front of a crowd or hit a hole in one? Oh, hole in one. Absolutely hole in one. I'm still chasing that. That's, as a golfer, that you chase that your entire life. I don't care, Brian. I don't care if it's a 30-yard hole. I don't care what the dynamics are. As long as I hit it off the tee and it goes in the hole on the first shot, man. Take a picture with the flag. Of course, you have to buy everybody drinks, when you go into the clubhouse, but it is what it is. I'm looking forward to it. I don't care. I've heard people tell stories about chasing that thing up into their 80s, and then it finally happens. And they don't care that they're hitting from the short tees either, my brother. They don't care. Like, you can't shame me. I don't care. I got a hole in one before my time was done. That's all that matters.
Can I answer this one, Sean? I think you know my answer.
I know your answer. Absolutely.
Reason number one, I hate golf. I like to go golfing with friends who don't take it seriously. Because you get out in the sun, you have some fun, you move around, it's a good time. I don't care if I play well or not. I just don't. I don't get mad on the golf course because I just don't care. And I don't necessarily enjoy, I won't be going to the golf course trying to work on my game. I just don't care. And if you hit a hole in one, it's like what, the 2-3 guys, 3 guys in your foursome are like, yeah, it's great. And you get to go tell people about it. But that, to me, that's as much about luck as anything else. The thing for me about dunking in front of a crowd, it's like that is just like a masculine, I am this guy type of thing that, just, and then of course, me, Sean, the cheering and all that would kind of factor into it as well. I'd be pretty hyped up, but yeah, I would much rather dunk once in front of a crowd. When I mean dunk, I don't just mean like I barely got the tennis ball over the rim, right? Like when I'm talking about like dunk, I'm talking about like it has some, I put some stank on it. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me is the kind of dunk that it would be a needle moving for me.
Yeah. I've actually had the exhilaration of dunking. Like we had this gym when I was in high school where you could go rent it out for a couple of hours and then you could play. You could tell them lower the rim to 9 feet, lower it to 9.5. So I've actually dunked before, not on a 10-foot rim, but I've dunked before. And I played on, the trampoline houses they have where they have the basketball rims. So I felt that exhilaration before. I'm chasing that hole in one. I just am.
And people say lower the rim, but like to me, that's different. Like, I mean, I've dunked on a 8-foot rim. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about like just just for me in the sports that I played. I just have just golfing has never been a thing for me. Like, if you want to talk about what would you rather do, dunk in front of a crowd or hit one out of a major league stadium in front of a crowd? Okay, now we're talking. Now we're talking, because again, I hit that home run. I promise you, it's going to get watched. I promise you, everyone's going to watch. You know what I mean? Like, it just,
you're going to slow trot it. I already know you're going to slow trot it.
I am not Sammy Sosa it around the bases. I am not. I am.
Pitcher is going to throw dead at your head the next time you step into the box,
and it'll be worth it. And he'll catch one again when I get out to the mound after the next one. Okay?
Don't end up like Robin Ventura against Nolan Ryan, though.
Well, no, I'm not an idiot. I mean, I'm going. No, first of all, I'm not going hard charging at that cowboy. What are you, nuts? Bobbing and weaving until my buddies show up with Nolan Ryan, son. What are you kidding me? I'm not an idiot now.
Oh, man.
I didn't get this far in life being suicidal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate you, man. Hey, this one, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. Just saying hello. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you very, very, very much. All right, we got some more of these, Sean. Let's get rocking and rolling, buddy.
Jeff Luke, thank you for the mailbag question. Jordan had Pippin peanut butter, has grape jelly. I prefer strawberry myself. IB has Lucky Lefty. Who would make your top 5 famous duos?
I'm going to go one, Sean, and I'm going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to go outside the box a little bit. And my favorite duo is actually not a duo on a team together.
Okay.
It is a duo that were on competitive teams that saved this game of basketball, in my opinion, is Bird Magic. They were on a team once, the Olympics.
I like that.
But that to me is the best duo that I'm going with. If I'm going to say the best duos on teams that play together, selfishly, it's Elway and Terrell. That would be mine. That for 2 years, that was a special duo. For 2 years, that was a special duo, in my opinion. A couple other duos that I thought were pretty good, Sean. And I'm going to stick mainly to, well, here's one, Maddox and Glavine. Now, I know Smoltz was part of that, but those two just kind of seem more of like the duo since they pitched so much differently. That was a pretty good duo. Trying to think of some more duos that I can think of. I don't know any potential hockey duos. You might. Wasn't there one? Wasn't there one? Hold on. I'm going to actually try to guess a hockey one. Wasn't Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr on the team together? Did I get it right? And then another one, wasn't Gretzky and Mark Messier on a team together? I did it, Sean.
Good job.
Good job. Woohoo!
Good job.
It's probably not the only 4 hockey players I can name.
Because I'm from Chicago, I'll throw in Taze and Kane. They gave us 3 Stanley Cups in Chicago. So of course, I'm going to start with Mike and Scott.
Sure.
Right. Mike and Scott. You're here in Chicago. You have to start there. I'm a hip hop fan. So for me, my favorite group is Tribe Called Quest. So I'm always going to say Q-Tip and Fife. Great combination. And then Briggs and Urlacher.
Wasn't Tribe more than 2?
I only counted 2. Okay. They have 4 members.
That's why I didn't go with like
I only counted 2.
That's why I didn't go with like the Celtics. Like I didn't go with Bird and McHale because you had DJ, you had the
Well,
Chief. You know, what I mean?
Jerobi did the first album, then he left the group.
That's true.
Yeah. And then Alicia.
That's why I didn't go with like Wu-Tang either because the
Alicia
same more than 2.
Like I wouldn't mind somebody saying Run and DMC, right? Because Jay was just the DJ. They were the actual MCs that run. Briggs and Urlacher, that combination for years at linebacker, absolutely astounding. And then strictly for my Notre Dame fandom, Newton Lou. There's no better combination than Newton Lou.
You know what's funny, Sean? I don't particularly care for either one of them as actors individually, but the combination of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly as an acting duo, they do quite well together.
I like that. Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart together was pretty funny too. That was a pretty I forget the name of the movie when he was preparing them to go to jail.
Get Hard or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought the reason I didn't like that, I just thought it was just Will Ferrell's character is just a little too over the top, annoying.
That's what made it perfect because you knew he was being over the top. What was the other combination? We talked about this movie with Mark, and you said whoever.
Oh, Tim Robbins.
Yes.
In no, it wasn't Blue Streak. Nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. Great, and I would not have predicted it.
Never saw it coming. Yeah.
Oh, I would have not have said, "Hey, what's a duo that would do a great job in a movie?" Tim Robbins and Martin Lawrence would have never been on my bingo card. I'll just put it to you like that. Yeah, some other sports ones. I'm trying to think of some. You're a Chicago guy. I'll give you a duo. One offense, one defense. Mike Singletary, Walter Payton. Brought you a championship. It's pretty good duo, right?
That's a pretty good duo. I can live with that. I can live with that.
Trying to think of some others, but
of course, you have stuff like Rice. Look, Rice, Montana.
Sure. Oh, that's got to be. I mean, that duo's got to be up there. Honestly, for me, Kelsey and Mahomes has got to be in that conversation. To be honest with you, it's got to be in that. I particularly don't care for Travis Kelsey a whole lot as a person for various reasons, but the guy's a phenomenal player, and that duo of those two was pretty good. I still feel like if John Elway and Shannon Sharp if their primes would have matched up a little bit closer, I think that duo could have been.
That's still a pretty good duo.
Special as well, yeah.
That's still a pretty good duo.
Yep.
Hey,
a very underrated duo
is Mike McGlinchey
for Notre Dame. Yeah. Well, my favorite duo at Notre Dame was Tony Rice and Rocket. That was my favorite Notre Dame duo. Was that group? Was that duo? So, and football's so hard because it's so hard to think of like two. It's like I was thinking about the Giants, and I'm like, here's one. Here's a sleeper duo that was really, really very underrated and good. Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks. For about 6-7 years was a really scary duo.
Heck, they also had Straight-Handed Tuck.
Yeah, well, and then they also had O.C. Umenyiora as part of that
group. You're
as
right.
well. Yeah. So I mean, there's been some good ones like
Duper and Clayton. That's going back.
Yes,
when they first came into the league,
the Mark brothers.
Yes, that was a great combo.
Yeah. Taylor, I mean, if you're talking about receiver duos, I mean, the Chris Carter, Randy Moss duo for that 1 year in 1998 was pretty flipping good.
Absolutely.
Taylor and Rice, that's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah, good questions, man.
They have Art Monk and Gary Clark.
Well, yeah, that was more of a trio.
Who's Sanders?
Ricky Saunders.
Ricky Saunders.
Sanders. Yeah. Him too. And then they had like Clint Didier at tight end and some other guys, but
Swan and Stallworth is a great call.
That's a good one.
Great call.
That's a good one.
Really good.
That's a good one. There's been a couple receiver combos like that were really good. Somebody just put in Franco Harris and Rocky Blyer. It's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Back in the days when you actually had 21 personnel.
Here's a good one. Jack Ham and Jack Lambert. Steelers.
Yes.
And you could also go up front
and
LC and Joe Green and LC Green. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Steelers, you could do a lot of them with Steelers.
Yeah, you had what? Randy White, Too Tall Jones.
Yeah. As long as you don't have any that include Terry Bradshaw, I can get on board with any of them. Leave him off. because you could have put 90% of the quarterbacks in the NFL on those teams, and they still would have won 4 Super Bowls. So yeah, you can miss me with all that Terry Bradshaw nonsense. There's some good ones, man. There's some good ones. It's been here's a duo from, if you want to go like real old school in the NFL. What was his name? Who was Johnny Unitas's
Mackey?
Don Maynard? No,
Maynard?
no.
No, Maynard was with the Jets, right? Mackey was with the Colts. Yeah.
Mackey would be the tight end, and him and Unitas had some carryover. Yeah. So some good. Yeah. Somebody said Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin. I think Michael Irvin's a good player. I just think Michael Irvin's a little bit overrated. I think he was a good player, but he was
extremely clutch.
Yes, and he was on some really good teams.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't put him on the same level as like Jerry Rice and some guys like that. And Hall of Famer, totally Hall of Famer. I don't put him on that same. The same thing with Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith's a great running back, but Emmitt Smith again benefited from playing with Hall of Fame offensive lineman, Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame wide receiver, a pretty darn good underrated tight end in Jay Novacek. I mean, that kind of factors into it a little bit as well. Could he have carried a franchise the way that Barry Sanders carried the Lions? Like, no, I don't think he could have. That's my thing. So Brady and Moss for 1 year was pretty fun to watch. I still think the Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Randall Cunningham group was more fun to watch for me than the Moss.
They had Robert Smith at running back. Yeah. They had a really good tight end too. Was Steve Jordan was before that.
I know you're talking about. Well, they had Jake Reed was on that team too.
Jake Reed was on that team.
Yes, I know you're talking about. I can picture the tight end right now.
He was really good. Yeah,
I'm gonna look it up, Sean. I'm gonna look it up real quick because as soon as I say it, we're gonna be annoyed with each other that we couldn't remember who that was. 1998 stats receiving. Who did we forget about, Sean? We're gonna be really annoyed once we figure it out. Oh, Andrew Glover. Yep. He was the number 3 leading receiver that year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it had Jake Reed. Matthew Hatchett was on that team. Leroy Hurd was on that team. I forgot about that. Robert Smith. I remember him being on that team. He was pretty good. Yeah, Leroy Horde was on that team. Number 2 rusher. And that was, of course, back when Randall had stopped running.
Yeah.
But that was a fun little duo to watch was Randall, the 2 receivers he had, Calvin Williams and Fred Barnett. They were pretty nice little 1-2 punch for a couple years with the Eagles. Yeah. So somebody just said Millie and Vanilli.
Hey, they were successful. Hey, I'll give it to them.
Neither of them could sing.
They fooled all of us.
Here's one: Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. That's a good one.
Yeah.
You want to go college? The one I liked even more than that one: Reggie Wayne and Santana Moss.
Oh, Reggie was there with Andre Johnson too.
Yes, but the Santana one was because Andre didn't break out till after Reggie was gone and Santana was gone. Santana and Reggie had their best years together.
Yeah.
So somebody said Hall and Oates. Now, what's funny is they don't like being called Hall and Oates. They like to be called by their names, Daryl Hall and.
They recently fell out too.
Yeah, they've had a lot of different fallouts over the years. Yeah. I have a feeling the blonde-haired dude's a bit of a pain in the.
Because they were supposed to record. They were supposed to record new music.
Yeah,
and
that dude sounds like a bit of a pain in the butt. Yeah. So it is what it is. Somebody said David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez. That's not a bad 1-2 punch.
That's a pretty good combination.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one. And somebody said college football. I mean, best receiving duo of the last 15 years. Somebody just mentioned in the chat was Jamar Chase and Jordan Jefferson. I agree with that one, Paulie B. That was a pretty dynamic duo in my opinion.
Shoot, hey, Neighbors and Thomas this year for LSU.
It's pretty good. It wasn't like that one, though. It wasn't like that one.
I would love to compare their numbers.
Oh, not even. They weren't even close. Yeah, so I'll give them to you because I've actually looked at those. So Malik Neighbors this year had 89 catches for 1,569 yards, 14 touchdowns. And Jamar Chase had 84 catches, 1,780 yards, and 20 touchdowns. Brian Thomas is the number. Now, again, they played 2 more games. But if you look at the difference in yards, Jamar even had 7 more yards per game, even with the more. Brian Thomas had 68 catches for 1,177 yards and 17 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson had 111 catches, 1,540 yards and 18 touchdowns. And they still had Terrace Marshall that had over 600 yards receiving, and Thaddeus Moss had over 500 yards receiving. So, yeah, that duo was sick. And
They
that was
put
a
you with.
sick
Are they
duo.
trying to call you the piano man in the chat?
Who's that?
They said Christy Brinkley and Brian Driscoll. They're trying to
Oh,
call
man.
you a Billy Joel.
I think Cam Pluta remembers me saying that my big celebrity crush when I was a kid was Christy Brinkley.
Yeah, that which made Billy Joel cool, right? When the
Right.
Uptown Girl video came out.
I kept thinking to myself, like, man, I've told my wife that my crush when I was a kid was Christy Brinkley. I don't have a crush on her now. She's like 70-some years old, and I'm a married man.
Yeah.
And she would never give me the time of day if I wasn't. But I was like, hey, you know what? Like, I could get a girl like that because Billy Joel, I'm gonna be better looking. I'm already as tall at 8 years old as Billy Joel. You know what I mean? But no, then I realized, no, it's not his tall, his height, or his looks. It's his musical talent. And
Yeah, that's a great question. That is.
Yeah, Stockton Malone. That's another good one.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a hard time with that one because I just don't like Karl Malone. Just not a big fan of Karl Malone. Here's one underrated duo. Very short time. They burned out a little quickly. Gary Payton and Sean Kemp.
Oh, man.
Talk about some alley-oops galore. My favorite college basketball duo was Jalen Rose and Chris Webber. They were fun to watch. Of course, they had a whole group around them, but Jalen and Chris Webber had some epic alley-oops back in the day.
Yeah.
No doubt. We're going to end up talking for 3 more hours about this stuff. Let's get going. Let's get to some more of these.
We talked about this a little bit with Matty Augustine only weighing 260 pounds. How much input do you think Lauren Lando may have and what to do with him?
Probably not much. I mean, that decision was probably made by Matt Bayless last summer, because Matt Bayless was still on the team when they had him on campus. And I would imagine that Matt Bayless would have given his 4-1
thumbs up. Yeah.
Now, they might have asked Lauren Landau what he also thinks, but I don't know if that's necessary at this point in time. And I think that there's even a greater chance that a guy like Lauren Lando could get what you want from him than even Matt Bayless because of the nature in which he runs his program.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Good question.
Coleman Smith, thank you for the mailbag. Where do you rank Antoine Delorier when it relates to the rest of the linebacker recruits?
Well, I haven't ranked him yet, but so this is more my gut. He's a good player. His film is really impressive to watch. He's not as good as the Noah McHale off my gut, Nathaniel Usu-Boateng, Marco Jones, Madden Fariemo. He's not as good as those guys. The other question is, I don't know that he has the ceiling that they do because he's already a pretty jacked up kid.
Yeah.
And so while I like him, and if Notre Dame gets him, cool, but he's just not on the same level as some of those other guys who are just more fluid athletes, every bit as explosive, but they all have much more room to grow. And when you watch Noah McHale, I mean, Noah McHale can rush the passer, he can play the run, and he can drop into coverage. He's very smooth dropping into coverage.
Yeah.
And so he's just a better all-around player. Where this kid is a thumper, put him at Mike and say, you're playing tackle to tackle, and every time a running back makes a move between the tackles, your job is to destroy him. I mean, he is an old school middle linebacker, explosive downhill middle linebacker. And I like him. I like his film, Sean, a lot, but there's just other guys that I like. It's a great linebacker class just nationally. I mean, there's I did an article recently, Musk gets in the class, and I was like, okay, what couple linebackers I want to focus on? And I was like, dude, forget it. You can land one of these 9, and you've done well.
Yeah.
It's a really good linebacker class nationally.
I put him in this, and this is when, we talked about where has the narrative changed for Notre Dame recruiting wise. What you just heard Brian say, like, I love all these guys. I think they have higher ceilings. But basically what Brian's telling you, if we get them, I'm not mad at it.
No, not at all.
Like, there were classes where you get a kid in Notre Dame that's like,
man, I wish they could have got that guy. I mean,
yeah.
I wish they could have got Marco Jones or Noah McHale but I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna
be happy.
Cool. You put that kid with Kingston and Bodie Cahoon and Drake Bowen and Jaden Osbury.
Yep.
Good. I'm good.
Not mad at it. Yep. Johnny S., thank you for the mailbag. Is Joe Rudolph a pin and pull or zone type of coach? Which one would you prefer?
Well, he can do both. His personal preference seems to be more of the pin and pull stuff. But he has no problem coaching inside zone. Which one would I prefer is inside zone? Both, but my bread and butter is going to be inside zone. And Mike Denbrock has been that way. I don't think you can just run inside outside zone all day. Like even the Broncos back in the day, they had different wrinkles. I mean, they ran inside outside zone, but they ran outside zone 6 different ways. And then they had different leads and ISOs and some different things to go with that. And I think you need a counter. You need some sort of pin and pull to the outside to counter with it. So I actually like both. It just, to me, it's more about what are you going to major in and what are you going to minor in? For me, I'm majoring in the zone. I'm minoring in the pin and pull stuff. It's a wrinkle for me. It's something to keep you honest that I can maybe gash you with that. And that's what Coach Heastan was. I mean, that's the underrated part of that 2017 run game, Sean, is they were an inside-outside zone team. Inside zone was their bread and butter.
Yeah.
But they had, like 3 times they busted a long run on a pin and pull scheme. They ran the buck sweep for a 59-yard I think it was buck sweep. It's either buck sweep or counter for 59-yard touchdown run against Miami of Ohio. They ran buck sweep for a 74-yard touchdown run against North Carolina, right? I mean, in 2015 team the same way. Inside zone was bread and butter. But what was the play CJ Prosise had that 92-yard touchdown run against Georgia Tech? It's counter. It was pin and pull. Down, gap down, kick, wrap, you're out the gate. You need those type of change-ups when you're a zone team. You can't just be inside zone duo. That's fine. You want to run those things 85% of the time, cool. But you've got to have some stuff and those things are meant to kind of keep you honest, change your eye discipline, but also to potentially create some big play opportunities. And that's what Notre Dame, they ran that buck sweep in 2017, Sean. They only run it 2-3 times a game, but man, they'd catch you on it. It was gone. You were out the gate. I mean, because if you hit that first level, Josh Adams hits that first level and you don't tackle him after the first level, strike up the band. The band director's like eating popcorn, all panicking, like, oh, shoot, they're running buck sweep and Josh Adams just got through the first level. Let's get ready. You know what I mean? And I'm giving the band director a lot of credit for understanding, pin and pull schemes. But hey, that's how we do. That's how we roll at Notre Dame. But yeah, I mean, you have to have those kind of balances to that. And same thing the other ways. If you're a pin and pull team, you better have something quick hitting, like an inside zone or a duo right up the middle to balance it. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the ability that Mike Denbrock is going to bring. The ability to go back to what he loves, but also the ability to mesh with what Joe Rudolph likes to do and to have those counters. And they have a running back room that has talent to do multiple things within the run game, including the passing game and including the running backs. So this offense is on track to be really explosive. And I can't wait to see it play out.
Agree.
Coleman Smith, thanks for another question. What are the chances Notre Dame takes a second tight end? And are you surprised for commit Nate Roberts hasn't committed anywhere yet? Figured he would be committed to OU or Ohio State already, or maybe that's Oklahoma State.
It's Ohio State. I think he meant to say former commit Nate Roberts.
Former commit, yeah.
And I'm not surprised he hasn't committed anywhere else because I think the whole thing was he wanted to kind of go through the process. He wanted to kind of play the game and have some fun with the recruiting process.
Yeah.
And he didn't like the fact that Notre Dame wasn't going to let him take visits. Which, look, Sean, these kids know. I don't care what anybody says. They know.
Yeah.
They know. And the only time that you can commit and not know that is if you surprise with the commitment. They weren't expecting your commitment. But pretty quickly that that's the case.
And it's a very subjective rule because it's a good rule a vast majority of the time. If people want to talk about a top 5 player, which majority of the time is going to go down to the wire in recruiting, I have respect for the rule, and I have respect for the fact that they stick to it.
Even with the top 5 player like Kevin Keeley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they stick to it.
That's why they wouldn't let Dante commit publicly.
Yeah.
Because he still wanted to take visits.
Yeah. So, look, if you're going to abide by something, abide by it. And Notre Dame does that, and everybody can have their opinion on it. And, some people feel like it should be a case-by-case situation. That can get very tricky.
Yeah.
Very tricky. So
it's not just a rule for principle. It's a practical rule because you find out how committed guys really are. When you tell them, hey, listen, if you commit, you can't take visits. And they say, hold on, I'm not ready to go public commit yet. Now you know.
Right.
This commitment was more of a, I'm holding on to this
Holding it in
until
place. Yeah.
I get something better.
Right.
That's the reality of it. I mean, so people say, they should have let Keon stay in the class. No. You're missing the point. Once Keon committed to taking officials, knowing what he knew about the rule, he was gone.
It's gone.
You could have said, "Oh, we'll sacrifice and let you stay in the class." Why? So he can then decommit later and flip to Alabama or someone else later. Once he said, "I know that you have this rule, but I don't care," he pretty much said, "I'm not coming to Notre Dame." Now you know. And so to me, I kind of wish they would have put a more firmer foot down with Peyton Bowen.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Definitely.
Save them some heartache and some embarrassment. So it because it's kids like him are exactly why they have this rule. Somebody said, well, you need to let the 5-star kid. No. If the 5-star kid doesn't want to commit, then don't let him commit. And now you don't go through the embarrassment of losing his commitment down the road. You just keep recruiting him, stay in the game. Hey, man, don't worry about committing right now. Like, if you want to take other visits, you enjoy the process, and we'll keep recruiting you, and we'll want to get you when you're ready.
Yeah.
But if a kid wants to commit but still take visits, he's not really committed. That's the whole thing. Is Notre Dame's trying to put something. And here's the thing I like about Notre Dame's rule: they will not let the flip happen either. If you're committed remember the Calvin Simpson kid from Texas that wanted to visit he ended up going to Ohio State. He didn't want to decommit from Texas Tech. And so Notre Dame was like, then you can't officially visit.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways, and so I have no problem with it because it's a put your money where your mouth is type of rule. That's what it boils down to. It's not some moral stand.
And the kids, no one is bad in the situation.
Right.
In my opinion, do kids use schools or do kids put Notre Dame in their top 5 to bring attention? Absolutely. Okay. Do they put Notre Dame in their top 10 to bring attention? Absolutely. It is what it is. But I think in a lot of cases, Keon Keeley, it was a real honest conversation. And Keon Keeley didn't want it to go down like that. He wanted to make a decision with Notre Dame being included, but the rule is the rule. Right. And Keon Keeley isn't a bad kid because he decided to decommit after committing.
But if Keon wanted to be at Notre Dame, he still could come back to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have taken him back. They'd take him back now. If Keon goes on the
call,
I'm 100% confident that that's true. 100% confident that if Keon Keeley jumped in the portal and wanted to come to Notre Dame, and now I think he'd have to kind of reach out to them more.
Right.
I think, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But if Keon said, hey, listen, I made a mistake. I want to come back. I think Notre Dame would have, I'm confident that they would take him back with open arms. So the point is, they didn't say, screw you, Keon, you can never come back. They just said you can't be committed because this is the rule.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna bypass that rule with him, but then tell some other kid he can't, you now have told that kid you're not as important to us.
Yeah.
And so, but that on the flip side is, hey guys, we did this with Keon Keeley. We're definitely going to do it with you. That's the reality of it. And so, like, they had a couple kids in this 2024 class that wanted to take visits, Sean, during the fall. And they basically said, you can't do it. And they were genuinely, and I'll say it now, one of them was Bronte Johnson. He just wanted to go with friends of his and go visit schools.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a genuine concern about him leaving the class, but Notre Dame was like, listen, I understand that, but like, this is, you're committed to us or you're not. And so what did that do with Bronte? It said, okay, I'm committed, so I'm not going to do it. But if he would have gone on those visits, it would have let Notre Dame know this kid's not committed. He's not really committed.
Yeah.
This is more important to him than this. And we got to find ourselves a third safety. And so it's practically more important than whatever principle that they're trying to live by. Practically speaking, it's a very smart rule.
Yeah.
Because
for them.
Yes.
And the way they need to be successful.
Right. How many times have we seen Notre Dame get this kid from the South or the West Coast? I mean, just the long list of players, T. Shepard, Deontay Greenberry. I mean, all these kids, it's just like, no, you got to put your money where your mouth is. And that's just the way it's got to be. But as far as Nate Roberts, I just, I think he's generally torn. There's the local school, Oklahoma, and I think he really likes Ohio State. So, but chances they take a second tight end, I mean, I think they're going to explore it. I think they take Nicholas Townsend if he wanted to come. I'm curious to see what kind of relationship Mike Denbrock chooses to build Lincoln Cure. I think they'll look for a second tight end, but I think part of it's going to depend on how do they fill up at other positions.
Yeah.
That's where I come from on that. That's where I come down on that one, Sean.
Andre Tonsil, thank you for the mailbag. Okay, I asked last night who cooks the best among IB Nation staff. Double R says he does. Brian, what do you say about that?
Well, I can make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches too. So just kidding.
Are you saying that's what Double R makes?
He's got 2 little kids. I'm just kidding. I know that
Touche.
Ryan does a lot of the cooking for his family, as do I. Sean, I know you can cook a little bit as well. I don't know. I've never had Sean's food. Sean's never had my food. I've never had Ryan's food, and Ryan's never had my food. Now, Vince had some of my hamburgers the other day, so Vince might be able to speak that a little bit. I made Vince. We
was on Championship Sunday, right?
Yeah. So I made some burgers and some potatoes, and we had some fun. So Vince might be able to tell you a little something about how I cook, but I've always gotten pretty rave reviews for how I cook, Sean. So my wife, before our kitchen went away, the last meal my wife wanted me to cook in there was chicken fettuccine Alfredo, which I make very, very well. But I made a couple little, and I'm always looking to change recipes.
Are you heavy on the garlic with your sauce?
No, I never did the garlic before. And this time, so what I've always done is I put a little bit of garlic salt and garlic powder on the chicken and let the chicken give me the garlic flavor and have more of a natural Alfredo flavor with that. But and I decided I was going to try to put some garlic in the actual Alfredo sauce, and then not as much as the chicken. It was really good. Yeah. I actually liked it a little bit more. Not heavy on it though. Actually, I put like 2 whole cloves in it, and it was just a little too sweet, you know. So I'm going to go down to 1 clove next time, like normal size clove next time. Yeah. But I actually liked it because I've never cooked it that way. And I make Alfredo sauce like I make it at home. I'll put just like I make Alfredos, like I make chicken Alfredo or fettuccine Alfredo, sort of the some people just do like butter. I actually make like a cream. So I will put butter in there and then put some heavy whipping cream, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Obviously put the garlic in there with the butter, and then let it kind of get to a simmer. Then I'll put Parmesan cheese in there, and then I cook it longer. So like I've found that the longer I cook it, the thicker it is, obviously. And so I like it a little bit thicker. And so I've kind of turned the heat up a little bit, which some people say you shouldn't do. It's worked really well for me. Turn the heat up a little bit, and it really has thickened it up nicely. But yeah, it's very good. Enjoy it very, very much.
Yeah, I'm a grill master. I don't cook per se that much, but
so that's why I wish you lived near here, because I could do the cooking and you could do the barbecue and the grilling. Yeah, you have some.
You get me on that grill, man. I can make some things happen. Thank you for the question, Andre.
Yeah. I mean, my answer is going to be me, though, at the end of the day. And I'm sure Ryan thinks he's the best at everything.
Yeah, so. He said that on shows with myself. Tyler Evans, we appreciate you and appreciate the super chat. Who is the biggest icon in Chicago, MJ or Peyton? Shockingly, it's not even close. It's Walter Payton.
Yeah. What I would say to that is it depends on what generation you're from. And what I was going to say was people more in your generation, you're going to get a lot more people willing to say Walter Payton. The younger generation, I don't know that they even have experience with Walter Payton. Would you say?
Nah, bro, it's a lot of small kids walking around with 34 jerseys.
That's awesome. So their parents are teaching them right.
Yeah, he's still.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Do you think that has anything to do with the type of person that they were? I mean, what's the Man of the Year award?
But first of all, football is king.
Right.
Football is king, number one. And I think relatability, Walter Payton's story, and even though he only won 1 Super Bowl, he won it with the Bears.
Right.
And they're just bigger than the Bulls. And they're just bigger. They're just bigger. So
1 Super Bowl with the Bears is equal to 3 or 4 with the Bulls.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about that with Notre Dame football.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah. And I know a lot of people are like, really? Like, yeah. Walter Payton is,
I just wonder if Michael was less Michael. You know what I mean? If that would have an impact at all. Because like you said, I mean, like I said earlier, what's the man of the year in the NFL trophy named after?
Walter
It's named
Payton,
after
man of the
Walter
year,
Payton.
being
And it's not
presented
because he
tonight.
was the all-time leading rusher. It's because, yes, he was a
Yeah.
great player, but he was always known as a first-class man,
Yeah.
human being, you
Yeah.
know? And I wonder if that's part of it as well. But
Yeah.
man,
And I just think I think even when he was no longer here, because the majority of the 85 Bears, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Steve McMichael got into the Hall of Fame. It's getting announced tonight, but shout out to him. And hopefully,
it's just a shame he won't be able to experience it the way
the
way
way
he would.
you would want Mongo to, the way you knew he would,
right?
If he was able to be up. And so prayers to him and his family. But you would have to be here, Brian, to actually experience it. Like literally, you can go to Bears games now, and there is no jersey.
That's crazy.
In all ages being worn.
I can somewhat relate to that, Sean, as a Broncos fan. I can somewhat relate to that. I mean, because you can still go to Denver and you still see dudes rocking John Elway jersey. I mean, now, and the thing is, Broncos have even won a Super Bowl since then. Bears haven't. I still say one of the biggest what ifs in sports is what if Walter Payton actually played on a good team for most of his career? Because that's what people forget. He played on some bad Bears teams and still dominated and put up great yards. I mean, his highlight reel is just if you're a younger person and you've never seen Walter Payton highlights, watch them tonight. It is so worth it. That is back when football was a sport played by men. And I mean that in the most traditional, you're nuts, you're sacrificing your body to play that game. You know what I mean? It was like Gladiator. I mean, it was a violent, it's always been a violent game, but it was a violent game back then.
We had in Chicago, we got to experience them both simultaneously. That was the true blessing of being a kid or being an adult in that era. Like that was the rise of Michael Jordan, and that was pretty much like the kind of like the end of the prime and going towards the end of Walter's career. But even in his last season, Walter put up really good stats. It wasn't like he walked away when he was still he was no longer carry a team Walter Payton, but he was still a good NFL running back. And and they were tremendous. A lot of people don't know they were tremendous friends. And
Michael Jordan and Walter Payton were really. I didn't know that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They would play poker all night long, and Walter would take Mike's money. Like there's stories where, Walter would just laugh.
Yeah, Michael is a great basketball player.
He's not a good gambler.
He's not really great at anything else.
No.
He's not great at baseball, not great at running a team, not great at gambling. He's great at basketball.
He's pretty good businessman. He's pretty good businessman because Jumpman is doing pretty good in some of his other endeavors. But he's a decent golfer.
Sean, you're gonna love this. I just got a text from Angela, and because I'm at the place, she's at home, and she goes, "You better wrap this show up. Chief closes at 9. That's that ice cream place."
You better make it. You better make it. Let's get through the rest of these questions.
To the next question.
I don't want to be the reason why. Do you see any team going undefeated in 2024? I mean, the team that wins, maybe?
It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I think actually Notre Dame might have the best chance of going undefeated. Notre Dame and Ohio State, because their schedule. I mean, man, it's going to be hard for some of those other teams.
Does O State play Oregon?
No, I don't think so. Let me go to Ohio State's 2020. Ohio State's 24. I'm not saying that their schedule is weak, but it's not like Michigan's. Ohio State does play at Oregon, but here's the rest of their schedule. Home against Akron, home against Western Michigan, home against Marshall, at Michigan State, home against Iowa, home against Nebraska, at Penn State, home against Purdue, at Northwestern, home against Indiana, home against Michigan. They don't get USC, UCLA, or Washington. And they play at Penn State, but Penn State, Penn State's Penn State. Yeah. So I'd say of those teams, they have the best chance.
Yeah.
But even that's going to be hard.
You see, just put something in the chat, right?
Who did? Did she say something?
Let's hurry up, bro.
She just put an ice cream thing.
Next question. Next question. Let's go.
Hey, Ange, I got to make some money to pay for that ice cream. Okay.
I still don't think that's going to work. Next question. I'm looking out for you, buddy.
But just to finish this question, I think when you do look at the other, like in all seriousness, Sean, like when you look at these other schedules, I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier. These teams have done it right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Oregon is a team that if they were in the Pac-12, I think would have had a shot to go undefeated next year. But you just saw they got to play Ohio State at home. They got to play at Oregon State, at UCLA, home against Ohio State, at Michigan, at Wisconsin, home against Washington. Right? That's not going to be easy. When you look at the SEC and you look at the Bama this year and you look at their schedule, they've got to play at Wisconsin. They've got to play Georgia at home. They got to play at Tennessee, Missouri at home, at LSU, at Oklahoma. Now they didn't get Texas, they didn't get Texas, but they still got to play at Oklahoma and at LSU. And those two games are being played in a 3-week span. It's at LSU, Mercer, at Oklahoma, and then home against Auburn. And then when you look at Georgia, who has to play, they have to play at Bama. They also start the season against Clemson, play at Bama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, home against Tennessee. And Texas, another team that we think has a chance to be a title team this year, and they could win it. They got to play at Michigan, Oklahoma, and Dallas, home against Georgia, home against Florida, at Arkansas, at Texas A&M, and then they still have conference championship games.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be hard for a team to go undefeated. Yeah. I really do.
Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker, from 23 committed and 24 recruits. A committed O lineman make you start an O lineman from them?
Oh, let's see. So from the 23, 24, and the 25 kids, what would my starting lineup be? Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to have any of the 25 kids on there because they're still not at this stage of their development yet. But if I could pick one just right now, I would have Jagasol left tackle, Gerby Lambert right tackle. My guards would be Sullivan Absher and either Peter Jones or Sam Pendleton, and my center would probably be Joe Otting. That would be my starting lineup, and that'd be a pretty good flipping starting lineup, in my opinion. And Silas Prescott would be my next tackle off the bench. I'd have Anthony Knapp having a chance to battle at that position. So I mean, you'd have some really good depth. But Jagasol, Lambert at tackle, Sully and either Jones or Pendleton at guard, and then give me Joe Otting at center. Of those 23, 24, and 25, man, that'd be one heck of a starting offensive line, man. And again, one of the guards that we talked about is not in there. One of South Prescott's not in there. She better not be texting you right now, telling you to hurry up.
No, bro. I'm trying to be a good brother. That's all. Chris Ayers, the linebacker room is a little short of bodies, but I would argue that the top 5-6 is as more talented than any other from the host era, and that includes Graham, Stonebreaker, Bolcar, Pritchard, Stamps. That's a pretty good group.
Yeah, Sean, I don't agree that it's short on numbers. I think people are still trying to look at the linebacking core as a 3-man position. And it's not. It's 2.5 at best. I mean, I pointed out last week, Sean, Thomas Harper played about almost 100 more snaps than Jack Kaiser did this year and played fewer games. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not a 3 linebacker. Like a buddy of mine was like, man, they need to get who's the Drew Tranquil from 2017 on this team? I'm like, there isn't one. They don't need one. They don't play that defense anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really 2.5 and really a lot. I mean, they're going to spend over half the game in a 2 linebacker defense. So if you're going to count it as 3, then you also need to include Jordan Clark as part of the depth chart. Clarence Lewis is part of the depth chart. Micah Bell is part, because they're going to play that position where the rover lines up will be manned at times by those guys. And so I think the numbers are fine. I think it's like you have to rethink. You have to be willing to change your thought process from numbers based on the scheme that they're playing. If they go back to a 3-4 someday, then you got to change your numbers. Your numbers got to change. If they go back to a 4-3 or a traditional 4-2-5, then you got to rethink it. But the way that they're playing it right now, I don't think they're short on bodies. Having said that, just pure God-given talent, that's a bold statement, man. It really is. But I also understand it. I mean, because like you recently, they've had some really good linebacking cores recently. I mean, you had Tavon Coney, Niles Morgan, Greer Martini was pretty good, but this goes even deeper than James Onwualu was part of that. 17, you had James Onwualu who played in the NFL, but man, that's a bold statement. I mean, you had some teams in the early 90s that had multiple NFL players on it. So yeah, could you imagine if we were talking about Luke Kuechly and Manti Te'o? Man, that still should have happened. I'm still mad about that. Still mad about that.
Benami, thank you for the mailbag. Was this Owen Strebig's recruitment? Was this Owen Strebig recruitment ever out of in Notre Dame's hands?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, well, from the standpoint of, I think that there were other teams that had a legitimate shot to win this battle. I think Notre Dame has pretty much led since they took the lead. They never lost the lead.
Yeah.
But was it a thing where it was a no-brainer? I mean, they had to work. No, my answer is no, it was never out of their hands from the standpoint of they always had control. If they just kept at it, they were going to win this recruitment. So to answer this question, I don't want to overthink it. Yes, it was. Was it ever out of their hands? No, it was not. The only way they were going to lose this recruitment is if they stopped working, but they never stopped working. Sean, DK said, ice cream eaten after 9 p.m. gives you nightmares. Wait till tomorrow. To which Angela responded, DK needs to be booted.
And I disagree. It's nothing like a good 9, 10 o'clock at night.
She grew up in California, so it'd really only be 6 o'clock from where she grew up. So,
Hey, I like late night ice cream. So
last couple questions.
Do you think we're in the top 3 for Saka? Anthony Saka, Duke, and Wisco really contenders?
Well, I think they are. I mean, Manny, you got to think about this. Manny Diaz recruited Anthony Saka when he was at Penn State. So there's a relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Notre Dame's in the top 3 for sure. I'll be honest, Sean. He would not be a guy that I would take right now. I did not like the junior film.
Yeah, you said that. You said that.
I would hold off a little bit on that one now that you have Josiah Key in the class. But yes, if they push for him, I would say that Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Duke would be the 3 I most think have the best chance because of that Manny Diaz relationship. And I could see Duke being the dark horse to win this one if Notre Dame and Ohio State fill up before he's ready to make a decision. I could see something like that because he's also a kid that values education as well, and that's something that Duke provides at that point in time.
His top 5 is very telling about the priorities with that family and the young man of what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Duke is in the top 5 and the school that he grew up with and as a legacy of didn't get in the top 5 tells you that the relationship with Manny Diaz meant a lot, and relationships mean a lot, and not having familiarity with the new defensive coordinator at Penn State, even with his dad playing at Penn State, played a major part. So his relationship with Al Golden puts Notre Dame in an advantageous, position. The relationship he has with the coaches at Ohio State, once again, I think relationship and fit is going to be at the forefront for Anthony Saka's recruitment, and that puts Notre Dame in the top 3, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Manny Diaz has a great relationship with the kid, but Duke, Notre Dame. Duke, I mean, great educations, but on the football field, I think they're in the top 3.
Sean, you're going to love this, man. Mr. 2.0 said ice cream after 9 p.m. equals the return of Pauline and Van Gorder, to which Angela responded, okay, I just lost my appetite for ice cream. Thanks to Mr. 2.0. The fact that she gets what that means is just another reason I love that woman.
You made a great choice, my friend. You made an absolutely great choice. That's what that means.
I will say this. I did say this one time. Somebody asked me, one of the questions was,
she said not worth Van Gorder ever. Edge is the best. Man.
Somebody one time in a mailbag, and I can't remember if you were on the show or not, said, who of you on the IB staff has the best game? And I was like, I think we all got game. I said, I don't know about Stiers because I've never met his wife. But I've met yours.
Mm-hmm.
With all due respect, my friend, Tiff is better looking than you are.
Oh,
just like Angela's better looking than I am. Vince's wife, who I don't know if she wanted me to say her name, is definitely better looking than he is. And Ryan's wife is better looking than he. Now he would be the one who would say he would disagree with that because again, Ryan thinks he's the best at everything. That's just how competitive he is. But yes, we all married up, so I think we all have game. There's no doubt.
I had to ensure that my daughter would be beautiful, so I had to marry up. Oh, I saw what she said. Yeah, she definitely. Yeah, I agree, Angela. Yes. Definitely, we all did.
We all agree on that. There's no debating that. There's no debating that.
Mark Avalon, thank you for the mailbag question. With the trend of transfer portal moving talent being so common, do you ever see the NFL questioning high talent players at G5 or D2 schools who do not transfer to Power 5 to face better talent?
I don't think they'll question that.
I don't think so.
I think actually it might actually mean more to them. You know, like, hey, we know your ability is here. Now you have to do some digging into that, right? Like, is this a kid who didn't want to compete? Like, what was the reason why?
Yeah.
But that's why you go to those schools, you meet with the coaches, and they're like, hey, look, this kid had all these offers, but this kid just wanted to, he started something, he wanted to finish it. I don't think NFL teams are going to punish him for that. Now, if the kid was getting in trouble and he couldn't go, or he just is a kid who, you know, he didn't really practice hard for us, he just dominated our level, and then that's a kid who probably just didn't want to compete.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah. Somebody just said, get the car started. I actually do have a remote start, so I should probably get that started now.
Give an example. Just my opinion. I think Chris Mitchell, if he had stayed at Florida International, still would have put up big numbers. They would have loved this production in back-to-back years of Florida International. And if he's going to run a 4.3, as he's talked about, NFL scouts are going to love him.
Right.
Now coming to Notre Dame, doing it on that stage might bump up where he gets drafted a round or two, maybe. But he's going to get drafted.
Right.
And he's going to have the opportunity to go into an NFL camp and show that he can be a guy.
The knock would be, and he would, you know, if he stayed at FIU, he'd get a chance to go to the Senior Bowl. I mean, so he'd get some chances to jump into the first round. The knock would be the level of competition, not why didn't you move up to a different level of competition.
Absolutely.
So if he fell in draft boards, it would be more of that unknown, not because he decided not to do it.
And I think teams, certain scouting departments that live off of finding those guys, and they're usually connected to really good teams in the NFL, they're the ones that are mad because they want those guys to stay hidden. They want to continue to scout the hidden gems rather than come into Power 5 teams now being on the big stage where everyone can see them. So it's the scouts, it's the scouts that really love scouting and digging and evaluating. They're the ones that are like, no, stay in the G5 because that's where we do our best work. Yeah.
Sean, that's going to do it, my friend.
Absolutely.
Great having a show with you, buddy. Enjoyed it very, very much. You don't get very many 2-hour and 20-minute IB Nation sports talk. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. We had some fun talking about all types of different topics, and look forward for you and I, Sean, to get back to our regular routine of the RTCF shows.
Looking forward to it. A
lot of fun topics to talk about, man. So
absolutely.
End of the night, Owen Strebig commits to Notre Dame. Big one. Folks, if you haven't done so, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share this podcast. If you are not subscribed on the podcast platform, or you're looking for a podcast platform to listen to, we do break all the shows into smaller segments. That's one of the benefits of going on the podcast platform. You can find it at all your favorite podcast platform apps, including Spotify, who Irish Breakdown is partnered with. But of course, guys, if you are not on the message board, we tell you this all the time, you are missing out. Go sign up. You can do a monthly membership, annual membership. You can join the booster club, all of that good stuff. So be with us. I'm going to get out of here, go get my wife some ice cream, and we will talk to you all again tomorrow. Mailbag tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Going to have the Irish Breakdown mailbag. We will talk to you again very, very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.